Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah's number one sports talk, ESPN 792.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. The show today and every day brought to you by our friends over at Les Schwab Tires. They've got tires, they've got wheels, they've got accessories for whatever you drive. So stop by your local Les Schwab today. The pros there will get the job done right the very first time. All right. We're going to do a 30-minute show today, and then we're going to turn you over to national coverage of the college basketball crown games. All right, so we've got 30 minutes of the show today. We're going to try to get it all done inside, well, now 28 and a half minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show.
I mean, the biggest games in college basketball right now, why not?
Why not?
That's what I thought when I decided to schedule it that way. Why not?
April Fool.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha, James.
Got all of you.
Got all of you jabronis out there driving in your car. Ha! JK. How do we feel about April Fool's jokes, James? I put a poll question up at Real OC Sports on whether or not April Fool's jokes are fun and worthwhile or whether or not we should just not do it.
So I'm okay. You know I like cheesy jokes and puns and those things. So it's not me not liking April Fool's jokes doesn't line up with that and the persona that I have that I have on this show, which is really me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just that it's too cheesy, or if I'm just jealous that I can't come up with clever. I'm not a good enough prankster to have actual good April Fool's jokes, and so maybe that's just why I'm out on it. I don't know. It's probably also that most people are like me that aren't very good pranksters or aren't good at coming up with pranks, and yet still are super obnoxious about April Fool's Day jokes. Like if you're a really good practical joker and you can pull off a really good prank, like go off on April Fool's Day.
Do your thing.
But if not, if you're like me, admittedly, who's not good at that stuff, just stay out of it.
Today you should watch like an Impractical Jokers marathon on True TV. There's no NCAA tournament games on, so just tune into the regular programming on True TV. It's just Impractical Jokers. I actually don't even know if they're still on True TV.
This should be a holiday for Impractical Jokers. I mean, it's an unofficial holiday for everybody, but it should actually be. It should be Impractical Jokers, the best of all day long.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're still on
anyway.
True TV, but I think they're actually maybe on Max now. In any case, we're going to do a fun show that's not going to include a lot of April Fool's jokes.
Although OC, I think the weather played an April Fool's joke. I thought we were in spring, but apparently it was false spring again.
I don't even want to get into that right now. I'm so bothered. I'm down in Vegas yesterday. It was actually relatively chilly in Vegas by Vegas standards for a spring day, but that's pleasant, right? And then you fly back, and it's raining when I landed yesterday after the college basketball crown game. It's raining, and then I start driving up the hill, and that rain turns to sleet, turns to snow, and, you got to shovel again today. So we all got to be used to it at this point. But, man, it's not my favorite thing. I'll just be honest. It's not my favorite thing. Okay, we've got Gordy Chiesa joining us in 25 minutes. We've got Jerem Jordan for a little red and blue at noon.
Gordy Chiesa live from the Crown. Just kidding. April Fools.
Kyle Whittingham. Talk a little spring football. We'll do that at 12:30. At 1 o'clock, Tony Jones, NBA and Jazz Insider. And then some players from the LOVB, the Love Volleyball, Salt Lake, are going to come in studio at 1:30. And, James, we're supposed to have Danny Drews, right? Danny Drews, All-American volleyball athlete from the University of Utah, on the beach volleyball and the court volleyball side. And, of course, she is a member of Utah Athletics royalty. Danny Drews, the sister of Lander Barton, sister of Cody Barton.
Yeah, Barton's the maiden
sister
name.
of Jackson Barton. Her maiden name is Barton.
If anyone's like, why is Danny Drews Utah royalty? The maiden name's Barton, and she was awesome as a volleyball player.
Unreal.
She's a royalty for her own merit too, but she's also part of one of the royal families of Utah athletics.
Absolutely. Her mom was a two-sport all-conference athlete. Her dad was a college athlete. Yes,
she's gonna be joined by
her who she married. The reason her name is Danny Drews, Christian Drews, was a Utah football player. So
good point.
A walk-on linebacker, living the dream. You know what I mean? Married into Utah royalty as a walk-on.
The kids are gonna be athletic freaks.
Yes,
because she's awesome. To your theory, it comes from
it is science. Okay,
comes from the mom. But also the fact that even though not a football star by any means, the dad was on a college football team as a walk-on tells you the kids are gonna get some athleticism from the dad too a little bit.
And I know Christian Drews has he's at least dabbled in like the grappling world now, doing jiu-jitsu and stuff like that.
Is that just a Utah football walk-ons who didn't make it pro in the NFL? Do they all just go to the combat sports? Is that a rule?
I'll say this. This is actually really funny because I spent a lot of time trying to get my former college teammates to get into the combat sports with me, to get into MMA, get into boxing, get into kickboxing, get into jiu-jitsu. I tried hard, James, because when I transitioned from football into MMA, because of the world of MMA at that time, there weren't like a ton of elite athletes doing MMA, right? A lot of tough guys like me, a lot of guys that were like better than an average like schlub athlete, but by Division I standards were nothing, right?
Yes.
And I went to the gym and guys were like, dude, how do you lift this much? You are really athletic. And I was just like, no, I'm not. I'm like, I am not athletic at all. But it's all about your perspective. It's all about the standard, right? And look, we're 20 years removed from when I started training. So now you're getting a lot more elite athletes that have transitioned in MMA or started out even as young kids doing combat sports, wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. And then they grow into MMA from there. And they're elite athletes. But because I knew this, right, I would try to get like Corey Dodds, who was a great wrestler in high school and was a great football player at the University of Utah and is a freak of nature athlete. And is also kind of like a cantankerous guy. I'm like, you should fight. You'd be a great fighter. And
like it seems like you need a release. You should fight.
Yeah, and it was just, I was like, he was so flexible. He had taekwondo and wrestling from when he was a kid. I would try to get people like that. Hey, come. And Brad Clifford, who was a tight end at Utah, I brought him to the gym a couple of times. And some, D linemen would come with me. A couple of my teammates from Weber State would come and do kickboxing classes with me and stuff. But nobody stuck, James. And then a few years later, many years later, I should say, then like another crop of Utah football players ended up in the MMA, well, the jiu-jitsu world at least. So now there's a gym in Utah. I'm not going to shout them out because they're, I guess, technically a competitor to my own coach, who's still a better jiu-jitsu coach. But this gym is really, really good. And they've got a bunch of former Utah players, like Harrison Hanley grapples down there, and Matt Martinez has won some tournaments, the former Sugar Bowl linebacker. And there's just, and Christian Drews is among that group. There's these guys now that have made that transition who were way better football players than I ever was and are way better athletes than I ever was, who are now doing it. And I'm just like, oh, see, that is what I'm talking about. That could be really scary. Those guys could be absolute nightmares in the fighting world.
The dream you had is finally being realized, and it's too long after for you to get any credit for it.
It's fine.
It's unfortunate.
But it's something I always encourage everyone, just go to your local gym. Come to my gym, Elite Performance. Like, just find the place where you can learn a little bit how to move your body, how to defend yourself, how to do jiu-jitsu. The sport of it and the practical application of it are fantastic. And it's really cool that there's a bunch of former Utah players now that are diving into that world.
That is pretty cool.
All right. Anyway, that's a random aside. It's not how I wanted to.
Well, we were talking about her Christian Drews.
Yeah, Danny Drews, Christian Drews. That got us to.
So Danny
all
Drews is going to be in studio at 1:30. She's going to be joined by former BYU player, former Cougar, Ronnie Jones-Perry. And great. We all know about how great a program they have down there in women's volleyball, ranked year in and year out, particularly pre-Big 12 era. But so she was part of that great program. They're both on Love Volleyball, Salt Lake City, so they will be in the studio talking about that. I think their season is ending soon, OC. I think it ends in the next couple of weeks, and they have a couple home games coming up.
They play at Bruins Arena on the Salt Lake Community College campus. We've been giving away tickets, and it's something that, especially if you have a family, it's an easy go. It's an easy get. Grab that ticket, get them out there, and show a little love to Love Volleyball Salt Lake City.
And just to put a bow on this, and then we can move on, the really cool thing about this league is, like women's basketball, it's become a big topic with how WNBA salaries aren't good enough for players to feel like they can just play here domestically if they're from North America full time. So they go to Europe in the winter in the WNBA offseason and continue playing. Well, it's been the same kind of thing in the volleyball world, OC, in women's volleyball particularly. This league, LOVB, Love Volleyball, is the first domestic women's volleyball league, and their goal is to make it so that the players that are from here don't have to go overseas to play. So
it's awesome.
It's really cool. There's a bit of a cause behind it too, if you're looking for another reason to go watch them play.
All right. I was lucky enough to be next to Sean Mooney yesterday, calling the action. Bill Riley off to a little trip, and I wish Utah had won that game. At one point, they led against Butler by as many as 11, and the effort was incredible, especially in the first half for Utah basketball. You had kind of an unfortunate sequence that included a technical foul and some free throws for Butler and allowed them to seize momentum back. And unfortunately, despite grit and a couple shots, big shots from Gabe Madsen, taking it all the way down to the wire, Utah basketball not able to continue their season in the college basketball crown, not able to get into the big money rounds of the college basketball crown. And unfortunately, that's the end of the Utah basketball season. They finish a game under 500. Still, and I know people are probably sick of hearing me say this, but still a better season than a lot of folks thought Utah basketball was going to have, picked to finish dead last in the Big 12 basketball conference. Certainly, we would have liked to have seen more. And that led to the changes at Utah basketball. That led to the firing of Craig Smith. That led to the hiring of Alex Jensen. And now you've got the question to answer, what's next for Utah men's basketball? I jumped on Spence Checketts' show yesterday after calling the basketball game, and we talked about this a little bit. I wanted to flesh this conversation out a little bit further on my own show. With your help, at Real OC Sports is how you vote on the Twitter polls. What should Utah men's basketball do to start the reset for the Alex Jensen era? And I'm talking about what they should try to do, really. What the effort should be in retaining the roster, rebuilding the roster, whatever you want to say. There is the idea and kind of the tone out there, and you heard Spence talking about this on his show, that it feels like maybe a clean slate is what's coming, that they're going to strip this thing down to the studs and rebuild from there, that Alex Jensen was given a 6-year contract and a nice salary and a good salary pool for GM and assistant coaches in order to really do a true rebuild. And if you know anything about home construction or home remodeling, if you know anything about I guess the restoration of the human body after severe wounds, sometimes you have to take away all the old stuff before you can really successfully rebuild a better product. Sometimes it's better, depending on how bad a shape that house is in, to just go ahead and bring in the backhoe and scrape it down to the dirt and then rebuild from there. There are some people out there, in fact, 23% of folks responding on the Twitter poll right now, that say, hey, that's the way to do it. Clean slate, return nothing from Utah basketball this year. You want to rebuild the culture? You want to redo and reset? You take away anything that influenced the era before that you didn't like. I think that's way too harsh, and I also don't think it's crazy realistic, and I also don't think it's wise, because if you do that, then you're putting an immense amount of pressure on the new coaching staff, on the new recruiting staff, on the new GM to get players. You're just going to need bodies. It's an immense amount of pressure to not only say, hey, rebuild this thing, redo this thing, but when you're backfilling 15 bodies that we need for next season, make sure they're good. Make sure they're exactly what we're hoping for. That's going to be expensive. That's going to be difficult. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it really, truly is in the best interest of the student-athlete community, the basketball community at the University of Utah. I don't think it sets the right tone for folks, because some people committed to play for Craig Smith, and only for Craig Smith. Some people make their college decisions based on, I love that coach, I love that coaching staff, that's who I want to play for, full stop, that's the end of the story for me. There are still a good number of players in every sport in college athletics that they commit because, yes, they love the coach, yes, they like what the coach has to say, but they also come to the campus on a recruiting visit, and this is probably less common than it used to be, but they just feel like, hey, this is home. I love the view. I love the community. I love walking across the bridge to campus. Whatever it is, there are people who commit to the school still. Again, it's not everybody. It's not most athletes, I don't think. But if you're someone who loves the state of Utah, if you're Jake Wallin, you're from here, you don't necessarily want to leave here, you played at another school here in BYU, that wasn't your favorite thing, so you transferred to Utah, and now you got to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, well, I'll find another spot at Utah State. What do you guys think? And I'm not putting words in Jake Wallin's mouth. I mean, he's probably fine to go out of state if that's what it takes to continue as a college athlete / semi-pro athlete. But I don't know that it's the best interest of Utah athletics and Utah basketball to just say, hey, if you were part of this thing before, we didn't like what we saw, so you got to go now. I mean, Jake Wallin's a good basketball player. Keanu Dawes is a guy. Like, if you let Keanu Dawes walk away, I'm going to question whether that was the right decision or not. If you make Keanu Dawes walk away, I'm definitely going to be like, that's not a good tone to set. That's not a good place to start. Because we've seen what the best version of him looks like. He can be like an 18 to 20 point, 6 to 9 rebound average kind of guy in college basketball. Like, if you continue to develop him and keep making him a more aggressive player and an attack the basket type of player, and he's worked on his shot, that's a guy who's going to be a pro somewhere. All right?
He's you don't have the term small ball center in college very much because you just don't have that many 7-footers compared to the NBA in college. But
right.
He is a guy that still is kind of a smaller center for college basketball. You could play a 5-out type thing if you're looking to play a little small ball. He could be your center too. He's physical enough.
Yes.
He is certainly tall enough and long, got enough length to bother guys who are taller than him. Like, he's got some
Butler.
Positional versatility that way.
You saw that against Butler. Butler is effectively 2 7-footers. They got a guy who's 7'1". They got a guy who's 6'11".
Andre Screen. Shout out to that name, by the way.
Andre, that actually confounded me a couple times on the broadcast. So I'd be like, Screen by Screen. Damn it.
Well, do you know what? That's one of those things that I've noticed in the NCAA tournament. Texas Tech has Overton.
Yeah.
The guy's last name is Overton, and they'll say over Overton.
Yeah.
Like,
see?
Shooting over Overton. And I'm like, you mean just Overton?
Shooting over Done. The screen by screen. Dang it.
Getting over the Overton screen.
If I was a little smoother, if I was a little more practiced, if I was a Tyson Ewing or a Bill Riley, I would have prepared myself mentally for that. And I'd been like pick set by
or screen by Andre or something.
Something like that. In any case, right? We'll get better. We'll get better with more reps.
He was one of their 7. He was one of Butler's 7-footers that Keanu Dawes did a really good job with.
And there was times when Keanu Dawes had to at least switch out and play that. And look, he's not afraid of the physical play down low. And I promise you, without having actually interviewed Alex Jensen just yet, I promise you Alex Jensen is going to come in and say, we want some more physicality from Utah basketball. So a guy like Keanu Dawes, a guy like Ezra Ausar, they have the bodies built for that.
I was going to say, I actually like Ezra. I've liked Ezra a little bit more than Keanu all year long.
But you don't have to choose one or the other.
No, so that's another guy that I would make a priority for. And Sean Mooney did a good job of this, I believe in the pregame, or maybe it was when he was on with Spence. Maybe it was both. Regardless, on the station at some point yesterday, he had said that Keanu Dawes would probably be his first priority. Jake Walleen would be right there too, and then Ezra Ausar might be his third priority of a short list of guys that he would make a priority of retaining.
And you know what? Knowing what we know about their NIL contracts, knowing what we know about their ability and their contributions in what has been an underwhelming season and is now a finished underwhelming season, I still look at those guys and I say, I lean on that stupid scouting word. I say the upside there in those players, and especially in Dawes and Ausar, the upside is unlimited. The potential with those guys is fantastic. I like Miro Little more than a lot of people do. I think Miro Little is one of those guys that you might have to come in and you might have to coach him a little bit hard. I think he might be one of those guys that you got to be like, look, dude, I've seen what it's like when you actually care and when you're moving your feet and when you're being a pest defensively.
You're not.
You could be Patrick Beverly, and you're not. Why aren't you that every single night? I would challenge him in that way. I think he might need to be coached a little bit harder. And I could be totally wrong, but it feels like that. He has great ability. He's also highly compensated. I think he's the highest paid guy on the team.
Yeah.
And that probably doesn't make sense. And whoever you are as the GM, the coach coming in, you're going to have that conversation, and that might burn the bridge. And you might I don't know how it's going to work, but if I'm the booster writing the checks and the team is asking me to do it again this year and to add more funds this year, I'm going to say to them, hey, look, is it true that Miro Little is making more money than everyone else? And they have to tell me, if I'm writing those checks, that was the case, but it's not going to be the case moving forward. There's a couple other guys we like better, whether they're in the organization right now, in the franchise right now, in the program right now, or there's somebody that we want to bring in. This is what we plan on doing. We're going to bring this kid from New Mexico, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. That's the guy I need your $1 million for. Now I'm writing that check. Now I'm having that conversation. But you could go blank slate. I don't think it's the right thing to do. 21% of people responding on the poll think it's the right thing to do. 8.6% of the people say right now retaining Eilert plus some players. I really like Eilert. I like his no-nonsense approach. I like his candor and honesty, not only with us, but with his players. The fact that he'll say something on the radio means that he will absolutely say it to his players. The fact that he is fully aware of the situation Utah basketball was in after Craig Smith left and after they got an invite to the college basketball crown with dudes already in the transfer portal, already taking phone calls and exploring opportunities. He was like, look, you're not here to play for me. You probably don't even really want to be here in Vegas. Be a professional, finish this thing out, do it the right way. You need someone on your staff who's a realist like that and who's an honest talker like that. And maybe Alex Jensen's like, I know 15 guys like that. I'm going to bring them all in and we'll be fine. I know NBA guys that are like that. But I like Josh Eilert. I wouldn't be opposed to him sticking around if, like he said when we had him in studio, if it's organic, if it's something that you can make happen naturally. The other response Bring back everyone, getting 1% of the vote right now.
Yeah. That's not even realistic anyway. Even if you wanted to bring back everyone, you're not going to.
You're not going to.
I mean, BYU just went to the Sweet 16. They've got 2 guys in the transfer portal.
Cannon Catchings is in the transfer portal.
And there might even be more than that.
Get him.
Yeah.
He's an athlete.
Go
get him.
Sounds like Carolina might be where he's going, but that's the first thought I had. Like, keep him in the state. He clearly doesn't want to be with BYU. Come here.
Retain key players, and I think everyone has a different definition of who those key players are. I actually put a poll question out last week about, which guy would you prioritize? Who do you want first? But it's Ezra Assar, it's Keanu Dawes, it's Jake Wallin, and it's maybe Miro Little, and it's
those first 3 guys, almost unanimously.
It's got to be.
And then
they're the 3 best possibilities to bring back.
And the next tier, guys, is where Miro Little is, at least the fan base, and I think I tend to agree with our listeners that that's the tier. It's those 3 guys: Wally and Assar, Dawes, and then maybe Miro Little.
And look, Keller had a really nice game against Butler.
Yeah, but where was that the rest of the year, man?
Well, you're right.
He didn't get a ton of playing time.
But you do need depth, right? He's not going to be the starter that saves you. He's not going to be. He's not as important as Lawson Lovering.
There's another guy that I would try to retain, but I think I'd still put those other 3 guys ahead of Lawson.
I agree with that, partially because that's just where college basketball is, right? Like Lawson, you have to be a really, really, really dominant big man in order for you to be as important as wings in college basketball. That's just the way. That's just the game. That's the style of the game. That's what drives tournament success. All respect to Zach Edey, but you're a unicorn. That's an outlier. There are very few 7-footers in college basketball that are polished and physical and talented enough to really be the driving force behind their teams. It's all the time. It's guard play, it's wings, or it's the positionless freaks like Cooper Flagg. Anyway, vote on the poll at Real OC Sports. Tell me whether you think April Fool's jokes are lame or whether they're fun and worth the effort. Tell me whether you think Utah basketball should go with a clean slate, retain Eilert and some players, retain just the players, or bring back everybody. And again, this is an effort thing. What should you try to do? Because I know you're probably not going to functionally be able to make promises to everyone and keep everyone. Maybe Alex Jensen is like, dude, don't put pressure on me to keep this Eilert guy. You want me to get Andre Miller? I'm working on getting Andre Miller, which, by the way, no news to break here, but I'm hearing that got a little bit shaky for a time and now is back on the right track. So
that's good news.
I'm once again optimistic that Andre Miller will be joining the staff at the University of Utah.
Optimism update.
Update.
Should we do a daily optimism update on Andre
Breaking
Miller?
Optimism. It's not news. Breaking optimism.
Absolutely.
We're back on the right side of the ledger here.
Not an April Fool's joke.
That one, yeah. That's not an April Fool's joke. By the way, somebody put out an April Fool's joke that Utah Hockey Club had settled on Mammoth. And now that's my least favorite April Fool's joke ever.
Now we hate all of them.
I'll tell you why that's my least favorite April Fool's joke ever. Because you're making it seem like Mammoth is the joke, which it's my favorite name, okay? And you're also making it seem like, they're making the announcement. Just kidding, no, they're not, which means we have to wait even longer, and I'm not patient about this. I want to know now. That's a bad joke, whoever I saw that from on Twitter.
You don't want to make OC angry. You made fun of his favorite team name option. He doesn't like it.
I think it is going to be Mammoth. I'm very confident it's going to be Mammoth. And now my nervousness and my trepidation comes from, do they get the logo right? Because the logo that they put on the fan vote was not nearly as good as like 10 of the logos that we saw people producing in the like AI chat GPT world, where they just prompted a computer to write them a better logo. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We got to take a break. Gordy Chiesa is going to come back on the other side with us, and we'll talk about, you guessed it, hoops, the future for Utah basketball. We might touch on that with him, but of course, the NBA and the Utah Jazz with our resident guru, Gordy Chiesa. Sean O'Connell Show just getting started here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Reminder to all of you to save this number in your phone, 801-839-4501. Yeah, remember how we thought that the sunshine was going to continue and that you were going to be able to get up on your roof and check and make sure the shingles and the gutters and the soffit and the fascia and everything was doing all right? Well, now you got another snowstorm, and you're probably going to get more. So leave it to the professionals at Top Local Roofing. Leave it to Justin Cunningham at Top Local Roofing. All up and down the Wasatch Front, they can take care of you. 801-839-4501. Leave it to the pros, but make sure that roof is in good shape because more moisture is coming, more snow is coming, more ice is coming, and after that, it'll be rains. You want to protect everything under your roof from the problems that can occur with the roof. Top Local Roofing, 801-839-4501. Gordy Chiesa next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Gordy Chiesa, our resident NBA guru here on the show. Gordy, how are you?
Oh, see, I'm doing fine, thanks.
It's always lovely to hear your voice. Gordy, I was down in Vegas yesterday calling college basketball crown action. The Utes, their season is over in this weird transition period that they're going through as Craig Smith was separated from his head coaching duties and Josh Eilert stepped in and I think did a pretty admirable job. They weren't able to win against BYU to close out the regular season. They weren't able to win the games they wanted to in the Big 12 tournament. They certainly weren't able to win against Butler yesterday the way that they wanted to. But now you get ready to turn the page all the way. This season is over. Alex Jensen is coming in, but we got to wait until the NBA season is over for the Dallas Mavericks. He's trying to kind of juggle both and balance both at this moment. How much work needs to be done when you first get a job, whether you're a head coach, an assistant coach, when you first get a job in college or pro basketball, those first few months, how much work needs to be done there in order to lay a successful foundation for what's to come?
The first thing to do is with the players that in the portal or your own team to re-recruit them. And so you have to develop with those guys relationships. So a lot of times people they don't take care of the players by reaching out to them constantly as far as talking to them how they fit into the program. So if I was counseling Alex, that's what I would do first. The highest priority is talk to the players that are going to be there next year, and then be aggressive in the portal. And so that's what you want to try to attempt to do. It's almost like re-recruit some of your own players.
So in the NBA world right now, we're coming down to the end of the regular season. We're coming down to the end of this tank race, and you're starting to see the coaching carousel turn a little bit. The Grizzlies have fired Taylor Jenkins. The Sacramento Kings are going to have a job open. We'll start with the Grizzlies. How appealing is that job right now for the other candidates out there in the world?
Very much. Is that they've done a good job with the Grizzlies as far as their roster. And Ja Morant is such a lightning rod. He got hurt last year and set them back as far as their franchise. The year before, they won 55 games in 27. And so right now with the Grizzlies is they are in the fifth seed at 44 and 31. And so whoever gets that job will have an excellent team that will be highly motivated. So that's a very coveted job. The Sacramento Kings, again, with Sabonis as the inside force, that it also will be a good job, whoever takes it. Whoever gets those jobs should be veteran coaches that understand the NBA, where there's a very small learning curve, where they're going to step in there and get those teams to go much deeper in the playoffs.
Ja Morant, clearly an incredibly talented player. You called him a lightning rod. In NBA circles, you know, he was in some trouble previously because he was having a hard time kind of separating himself from the sort of rough background and the gun culture and things like that. Where is he at with that right now for people in the know?
Much better. There's a slight mature factor right now with him. And so let's not forget his age group, right? He'll be 26 years old on August 10th. So this is his sixth year in the NBA. So he's absolutely in his prime years. And I think that to his credit, he's made a diligent effort to be more mature with all circumstances. The problem he's hurt right now, and that's part of it as far as with the ankle sprain, because he's been out, and that set them back some. But in a big picture, they have a good team. I mean, I like Desmond Bain. I like Santi Aldama. I like Jaren Jackson. I like Luke Kennard. Brandon Clark, who's hurt right now. So their lineup is good. And so they've just got to put everybody together and have a coach that the players really respect, and they can go forward and go after everyone else in the West. The West is loaded, OC. I mean, the Thunder, Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, Grizzlies, Warriors, T-Wolves, Clippers, Mavs, and the Kings, and the Suns. That's 11 teams that they thought last year in July, they thought those 11 teams felt that they could be NBA champions this year, and it hasn't worked out so far for some. Others are saying we can do it.
As far as the Sacramento Kings, who you just mentioned, they're in the play-in spot right now, and Doug Christie, right, I think is the interim head coach. Is he going to be given an opportunity to really keep that job, or is this one that is a national search? And I guess the same question as I gave you for the Memphis job, like how appealing is this one right now?
Yeah, there'll probably be a change. Yeah, yes, very much. And Wes Wilcox, ironically, who's the general manager of the Kings, went to Utah University as general manager of operations and so he probably knows something that we don't know. And so I think that the Kings will make a change, and that there'll be new coach. There'll be a new coach there. Again, with the Kings, last year they finished 46 and 36, the ninth place, and they think they have bigger aspirations. So they're going to try to get into minimum the play-in tournament and get some upsets in the first round when they go probably against the Thunder or the Rockets.
For the Kings job, it is slightly different, I think. Maybe not. Memphis is a small market team as well. Sacramento has been around a long time. They've got a very passionate fan base. That arena is nice now. And so if you're a rising coach, if you're a coach with other opportunities in the NBA, is that Sacramento Kings job one that you're willing to take on, knowing how loaded the West is going to be?
Yes, and the reason why is just like in the NFL, where it's 32 head coaching jobs. In the NBA, it's only 30. And so you're at the top of the apex. And as a coach, you have to be very smart about what job you take. However, at a certain point of your life, but we'll say you're 50-something years old, that no matter what happens, that I think I can get this team better and improve it dramatically. So there has to be a leap of faith in yourself as far as your abilities, and then, again, connect with the players. So much is relationship-driven with your star players. So the question is always this, as a head coach in the NFL or the NBA, you have to let your standouts be stars, yet you've got to be able to get them to play effectively on both sides of the ball, and within the locker room, be a leader. And that's your greatest coaching, is when you coach the star players with them, as far as how they direct the team internally.
Gordy Chase, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Here, let's move on to some Utah Jazz discussion. In action tomorrow against the Rockets. They're in the midst of a road trip. They've lost 6 games in a row, which I feel like I have to throw the caveat every time. That's the plan for now. That's what you're trying to do. You're firmly entrenched in the bottom 3 in the tank race for those top lottery odds, and you're against a Houston Rockets team that's got some promise, got some talent. So what do you need to see from this Jazz team on the road in Houston?
Well, on the road in Houston is that the Rockets are first in the NBA in overall rebounding. They go after the glass 48.6 rebounds per game. And so if you're a Jazz player, whether Filipowski or they do play Walker Kessler, you've got to put your hard hat on and bang the boards. Also within that, they're first in the NBA in offensive rebounding at 14.8 per game. Now, the flip side is that they're the worst team in the NBA as far as foul shooting at only 74.2%. So tomorrow night's game, if it's close inside, foul the guy, put him to the line. OC, so let's add to that. So now in the playoff basketball with the Rockets, with them being the worst foul shooting team in regular season, the pressure of the playoffs is magnified tenfold. And so for the Rockets, they have tremendous intentions and are playing very well. But in playoff basketball, it's a very bad stat as far as metrics of being the worst foul shooting team. They're very similar to the Bucks because Giannis only shoots roughly 62% from the foul line when the Bucks play in the playoff games, and Giannis leads the NBA in most foul shots attempted, and even playoffs even more so. It's very demoralizing when you go 0 for 2 as far as individually, but also in the fourth quarter. And so the Rockets, they're an interesting commodity. They have improved. From the Jazz point of view, is that they've got to be ready to battle. OC, there's a last point about the Jazz is, do you realize that they set a record now? They're the worst. The Jazz set a record now last night as far as no matter what happens with 6 games left, it's the worst record in the NBA Jazz history franchise. That the previous record was 23-59 of the first Jazz season in New Orleans in 74-75. So with the Jazz only having 16 wins with 16 games left, the most they can win is 22 games this year. So this is the worst Jazz record in the history of the franchise.
With that in mind, Gordy, I know these guys are professionals, and I know that they're passionate about the game of basketball, but I imagine there's some level of relief when you see the light at the end of the tunnel and a dismal season is coming to an end. So this kind of final couple weeks of basketball for the Utah Jazz, what's the emotion and the mentality of a locker room after a year like this?
Destroyed. Where you're an athlete, professional athlete, and that for some guys, you lost a year of your career, whether it's injuries or whether rest or holding out certain players, is that you can't get this back. I mean, that's the thing about it. But again, I'm looking at the point of view of the players. And you're a coach, you try to bob and weave between ownership and management and also trying to win, but also have the players. Remember, without the players and also without the fans, there's no NBA. And so how does the players think about that? Now, the players' point of view, everyone always thinks about it, oh, well, I'll be better next year. I have next season, and they do. However, this season for some of the guys, they won't be. They played lesser games, and some of them also, OC, will not be here next season. And so it's a bittersweet mood in the locker room as we speak right now. They wanted to get it over with, but also that knowing that I wish I could have played better or I wish I could play more. So, for example, Jordan Clarkson, we all like him. That guy is good. However, because of injuries and other issues, as far as holding him out, Jordan Clarkson only played this year 37 games. He's going to miss 45. John Collins, who's played well when he was healthy, played well. He only played this year 40 games. He's going to miss 42. And then Taylor Hendricks, the ninth pick of the draft 3 years ago now, he only played in 3 games. He's going to miss 79. And so those are the guys I'm talking about, plus Colin Sexton, who's fiery. So the question is always is that I want to play. I wish I could have played better. And overall speaking, I want our team to have more wins.
Gordy, what's your list today?
Okay, my list today. The Final Four is this weekend with Auburn versus Florida Gators, an SEC contest, and then the Duke Blue Devils versus that rock-solid defense of the Houston Cougars. My list today is about points.
All one seeds, Gordy. 4 1 seeds.
Yeah, all one seeds. That's exactly right. And the last time all one seeds played in the NCAA tournament, the Final Four, was back in 2008. And that was Kansas, Memphis, North Carolina, and UCLA. And ironically, 17 years ago, it was also played on the Alamo Dome. So we're talking about deja vu to the ultimate. My list today is the career point leaders in NCAA tournament games. So the career leaders of the most points scored in NCAA game. It's a short list of only 9 people. Corliss Williamson and Bill Bradley are tied for 8th most ever with 303 total points.
You said Corliss Williamson?
Yeah, Corliss Williamson of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And remember, these guys played usually 3 or 4 years. Now, in this generation, it's usually one or done, or maybe the most ever 2 years. And then Bill Bradley with the 303 points. One time he scored an NCAA game, 58 points versus Wichita State University back in 1965. All right, 7th best scorer of NCAA history is Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He scored 304 points in 12 games. 6th all-time scorer, University of Michigan, Glenn Rice, scored 308 points in 13 games. Number 5 all-time, Oscar Robinson, University of Cincinnati, in 10 NCAA games, he scored 324 points, including one game of 56 points, barrage versus University of Arkansas back in 1958. Number 4, and this one's really eye-popping, Tyler Hansborough scored 325 points in NCAA history in 17 games, which come to 19.1 points per game. 3rd all-time leading scorer, former Jazz alumni, the privilege to coach, Danny Manning, from McKennish University played in 16 NCAA games where he scored totally 328 points, and the number 2 all-time leading scorer in NCAA tournament history is Elvin Hayes, University of Houston, where he scored 358 points, and the number 1 scorer in NCAA tournament history, career-wise, is from Duke, Christian Laettner, in 23 games, scored 407 points for 17.7 points per game. So that's the list, as a short list of the all-time leaders in career points in NCAA history. One more point about this. What about just one game? What is the all-time record for most points scored in a single NCAA tournament game? And that is by Austin Carr in 1970 when he played for Notre Dame. He scored 61 points versus the higher U Bobcats.
Oh, my gosh. 61 points in a tournament game?
Yeah, 61 points. So, again, different era, different time, different place. And remember, a lot of these guys didn't play with a three-point shot. So it's even more magnified. So when Oscar Robertson and Bill Bradley scored 50-something points in those games, and Kareem and those guys, there was no three-point shot.
That's unbelievable.
Remember, the three-point shot came in college basketball was the 1986-87 season, and that was the first time it was used. So it hasn't been a really long time ago.
Wow. Gordy, we always learn something when you come on the show. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Sean. Peace out.
Gordy Chiesa, once again, resident NBA basketball insider. Well, just basketball insider, period. 61 points in a single NCAA tournament game? What kind of legend are you after you pull that off?
That's a 40-minute game, first off, so 8 minutes shorter than an NBA game. Plus, as Gordy mentioned, back then, no three-point shot.
Crazy.
Which gets a little overblown because people act like no one scored 50 points before the three-pointer. Like, lots of people did that. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 well before the three-pointer was a thing. But it's still, if you're thinking, oh, that's the way that guys get the most amount of points, if you grew up in this current era, then yeah. You compare it to this current era, like that's crazy to think that a guy could score that much without a three-pointer.
When you think about the all-time scoring leaders list in the NBA, like Kareem didn't shoot three-pointers. Karl Malone didn't shoot three-pointers. There's guys on that list like Shaq.
Jordan learned to shoot the three, but it was not. It was never his strength.
He didn't butter his bread with that, right?
Yeah.
Like Shaquille O'Neal's way up there.
Shaq made one career three.
Is that
Did
true?
You know that? Yes.
One?
with the Orlando Magic, I believe it was like 94, 95. Like this. And it was a prayer at the buzzer at the end of a quarter buzzer. Exactly how you would think a guy like Shaq might make one career.
You would think that all the basketball games he played, he would have attempted more of those scenarios where you're just like heaving it up and like something's going to go in. But
it
anyway.
only happened once for him. Yeah.
All right. We'll get to some hot lunch here next. Make sure you go to check your $1 million bracket challenge progress. No one's going to get the $1 million, but Motorsportsland, Jersey Mike's, Intermountain Sportsman's Expo, Intermountain Bobcat, Ken Garff Nissan. They've hooked us up all year with this Intermountain or with this $1 million bracket challenge. You know who's winning now in the company pool? Porter.
That's obnoxious.
And you know what stinks? It's Porter, then it's Kayvon, then it's me. I can't beat Porter now because we have the same picks the rest of the way.
Who's your champ?
Auburn.
Okay. And you've got Duke beating Houston, or you have Houston?
I think I have Houston. Yeah, I have Houston beating Duke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
defensive machine. Houston.
I haven't checked it. What am I, like 10th on the list?
You're fifth.
Fifth. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got Houston winning, but I only have the two Final Four teams, Auburn and Houston. So
Porter. I'm shaking my fist if you're not watching on the YouTube feed, which you should be doing. Hot lunch is coming. Free concessions. Somebody saw what Ryan Smith had done, what Arthur Blank had done, and they said, oh, cheap concessions? That's great. I'm going free.
hold this free beer.
I see what you did there. I'll tell you where me and James are going to watch games next year to get those free concessions. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk.
Butler has missed free throws, but they have 7 missed layups.
Yeah. By the way, Patrick, of course, who came over, there's the young man that's screaming through the free throws, and as Thad Mata pointed out, has been very effective. But by the way,
Butler has missed free throws,
shout
but
out
they
to
have
Cheech.
7 missed layups.
Yeah. By the way,
Having a little 15 minutes of fame as the
Patrick, of
free
course,
throw
who
screamer from
came
Utah
over,
versus Butler on Fox.
there's the young man that's screaming
And
through the
obviously
free
you can
throws,
hear
and as
him
Thad Mata pointed out, has been very
on our
effective.
broadcast, I think, screaming
You
through the
could.
free throw.
You could hear it really well
But by the
over
way,
the board. I was producing the thing, so I
Butler
could
has-
tell you what was going on over our air.
Missed free throws,
love
but
Our
they have
airwaves.
7
You could
missed
hear it.
layups.
Obviously, you just heard
By
that
the
was the
way,
Fox broadcast, Fox Sports giving
Patrick,
us
of
that
course,
sound. Tim
who came
Brando,
over,
one of the play-by-play
there's the
guys
young
for
man
Fox
screaming
Sports.
through the free throws, and as Thad Mata
Shout
pointed
out to
has been
Corey
very
Cheech
effective.
and his Matty Wilkie jersey. If you guys aren't familiar, if you weren't
But by the
familiar
way,
with Corey Cheech until
Butler
yesterday,
has-
listening to the
missed free
radio
throws, but they have
broadcast,
7
he's also
missed
the guy. If you
layups.
were watching when
By
the
the
Jazz
way,
last played the Hornets in
Patrick,
Charlotte,
of course, who came
or
over,
was it at the Delta Center?
there's the
Anyway,
young man
somewhere they were
screaming
playing
through the free
somewhere back
throws, and
east
as Thad
earlier
Mata
in the year.
pointed out, has been very
He was
effective.
doing bird noises and screaming just like that, and he got 15 minutes of
But by
fame
the
back
way,
then
you-
for doing. He was in Charlotte
Butler
for some
has-
reason watching the Jazz game in the same
missed
Matty
free
Wilkie
throws, but they
jersey.
have
So shout out
7
to Cheech.
missed layups.
Well
And
done.
By the
yeah, and
way,
shout out to Matty Wilkie too. Like totally deserving
Patrick, of
for
course,
people
who
to be wearing
came
the jersey.
over,
It's sick jersey.
there's the
Matty
young
Wilkie
man
jersey.
screaming
It's great
through the
jersey.
free
Mountains,
throws, and as Thad Mata
had like a
pointed out,
mountain
has been
pattern
very
at the
effective.
bottom. Like it was sweet.
Thad Mata gave him a shout out. It's
But
just
by
like,
the
hey,
way,
this
you-
guy's our biggest problem right now
Butler
in
has-
this game. I mean, The atmosphere
missed
down
free
at the college
throws, but they
basketball
have
tournament,
7 missed layups.
I hope it gets. I hope it
By the
grows.
way,
I hope it gets bigger. I hope more people attend. There were not a lot of people there. All right, but Boise had more fans than Utah did. Obviously, things were starting to filter in. Vegas is a good town to go watch a quick little basketball tournament. I actually ran into some of our listeners, James, when I was leaving. I was going home, right? And the Salt Lake flight came in, and this family gets off, and they're just like, oh, say what's up. I was like, you guys are late, man. The game already played. They were flying down to go watch the later games.
Oh.
Hoping that Utah would win on Monday. And they were going to go
a few days
stay until like Thursday or whatever.
Shoot.
But
so close.
I was like, well, what are you going to do now? They had Carrie Underwood tickets, which is totally worth going to Vegas
that's
for.
worth the trip, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we got to get to this in the hot lunch really quick. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. Go Chants. Okay? They're doing free concessions at their football games. Not, here's our dollar menu. Not, this is $2 for a bottled water and $2 for a hot dog, and you can get ice cream for $3.
Not what they're doing at the Delta Center, which is awesome.
Which is, by the way,
affordable concessions.
It's fantastic.
They're one-upping that.
They're one-upping. They're just like, we need people to come to these games. Free concessions. This is going to backfire terribly for the Chanticleers, I promise you.
It really will.
They're going to have to shut this down halfway through the season. They're going to lose so much money on this. This is like when Red Lobster was giving free shrimp and it bankrupted the whole company.
Yeah.
You cannot underestimate the gluttony of Americans, especially, dare I say, Americans in the South.
In Myrtle Beach. Coastal Carolina is basically in Myrtle Beach.
So you're going to get a bunch of people who can't afford to live there who are just going to be like, well, I'm getting my money's worth out of this. I'm going to a Chanticleers game. They're not going to make the stadium that much louder because they're just going to be in line to get their free concessions the whole time. Hot dogs, popcorn, drinks, nachos at every home game this year. Up to 4 items per visit. So each time you get in line, you can get 4 items.
Get one of those. You can get one of those things each. You can probably mix and match, get 2 nachos and 2 drinks, whatever.
I'm going 4 hot dogs the first trip.
Yeah, up to 4, but then unlimited visits. So you can only get 4 things each time you go to concessions, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're not going crazy here, except they're letting you go back as many times as you feel like it during the game.
James, we're going to a Chanticleers game, and we're going to see
broadcast live.
We're going to see how much we can eat at this game. And
Utah needs to put the Chants on the schedule, home and home, just so that we have an excuse to go out there and do this.
And by the way, I'm bringing my kids, and I'm forcing them to order 4 things each. No way that my tiny daughters are going to eat all 4 things. But even the baby, I'm going to carry the baby and be like, well, she gets 4 things too. They're going to be like, no, she's a baby.
That's true.
She's a human.
The video, she's a human. The video does not say that it's not like a 1 per household thing either. At least that's not. They don't explicitly say that.
You can't discriminate against children. That's not going to fly.
She's a human.
Okay, which means, James, if it's me and my 3 kids, I can get 16 items per trip. And we can get in line as many times as we want.
20 if you got your wife there with you.
There's no way my wife is indulging this ridiculousness. I deliberately left her off because if I was like, hey, you're coming to Coastal Carolina, you have to come to the game with us so I can get an extra 4 free hot dogs.
Tell her Myrtle Beach, not Coastal Carolina game. We're going to Myrtle Beach.
Hey, honey, we're going to Myrtle Beach. You're going to love it. I got a special activity plan.
She'd be like, you know what? That sounds awesome if I was 75 years old.
You know what, though?
Trip to Myrtle Beach.
My wife does love the, weird plasticky nacho cheese that you get at stadium nachos. She loves that stuff.
She'd get 4 nachos then.
She'd get 4 nachos. Oh, my gosh. This is happening, James. Put it in the company budget. We're going to Myrtle. And we're going to go to a Chanticleers game.
I'll just tell them. I'll tell the higher ups that we don't have to pay for food.
Hey,
we save on food.
No per diem necessary. We're getting unlimited concessions.
We're going to eat 4 days of meals worth in one game.
I'm telling you, this I love the idea and the attention that it's bringing them right now, but in actual practice, this is a nightmare for Coastal Carolina. This is going to be a mess.
The best, my favorite nightmare, this one.
Oh, man. Well done. Okay, got to take a quick one here. Red and Blue with Jerem Jordan. We'll talk a little BYU. They're wrapping up spring football soon. Obviously, their basketball season in the rear view now. Couple of big names, big-ish names in the transfer portal from BYU basketball. We'll get to all of that on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's number one sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show, hour number 2. Kyle Whittingham, head coach of Utah football, in 21 minutes here on the show. If you can't catch us live, you can always find us at ESPN700sports.com, the ESPN 700 app. You can tell your smart speaker to play ESPN. Find the Sean O'Connell Show wherever you get your podcasts, and you will hear conversations like this next one with Jerem Jordan, our BYU insider, a resident BYU insider and friend from BYU Sports Nation. Jerem, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great, Sean. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. I heard the name Cannon Catchings out of your mouth more than virtually everybody else I know this season. I know that I know that you liked him. He's in the transfer portal. We know that doesn't always mean a guy's going to depart, but is at least testing those waters.
Sean, he gone, dog. He gone.
Okay, all right. He gone. Is he going to be at Carolina? Where's he going to end up?
I don't know. I'm not sure, but hoping he does well. Sincerely, unfortunately, didn't work. He was a starter at the beginning of the season. Huge upside. Still has huge upside. I think he's going to be in the NBA at some point. But for whatever reason, BYU started Mawit Mag in his place. That kind of changed the season. There were games where Cannon was unbelievable. Scored 23 against Baylor. Didn't miss a shot. He was awesome. And then there were other games where he was DNP CD, coach's decision. Didn't play against Wisconsin, which I'm sure was disappointing for him. But frankly, BYU said, hey, who gives us the best chance to win? And in those situations, they opted for him to come in sometimes not. So he's looking for apparently greener pastures, and wish him the best of luck, man.
And, it feels like almost a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Like, how big a loss is it for BYU? Because you just explained that sometimes there is addition by subtraction, and it's not an insult to the kid. It's just the team dynamic, and Mag and whoever else ended up being a little bit more of what BYU needed along the way. But you never want to see talented players depart your program. So how big a loss would it be? Will it be?
I mean, the future promise is an upside is kind of what BYU is losing. You don't sort of sweat over like a 7-point-a-game guy that came off the bench a ton, but his future is very bright. And so that was sort of the excitement was, what is this kid going to become? And he's very young. Like, you look at him, he looks 16, 17, but he's got a man's body, like 6'9" long. He's going to be a very good player in the future. Disappointing that future won't be with BYU, but he kind of played out of the rotation, got a little hurt at the end of the year too. And so in terms of like the team that beat Wisconsin, they didn't need him to beat Wisconsin. So that speaks to kind of the depth that bench had, that you could, at the beginning of the season, this guy had NBA late first round projections to, by the end of the season, not so much, and still BYU's thriving. So, the hope was you could develop him going into next year, but unfortunately, he won't be around. So we're excited, kind of, I guess not excited, but just hoping that he thrives elsewhere.
There is a lot of optimism for BYU basketball, understandably so, after a Sweet 16 year and knowing that A.J. DeBonce's come in. I saw this question kind of flowing around social media. A.J. DeBonce, what are you projecting his averages to be in his, what we assume will be first and only season in a BYU uniform? And I saw some of those numbers that people responded with that were crazy. I saw some that were optimistic but seemed realistic for me. Very few people I know pay more attention to BYU basketball than you do, and very few people probably have a better sense of how they want to use AJ than you do. What do you think his numbers actually look like, just to jump on the social media trend?
Oh, this is interesting. I've not thought about this exact number, but because it's his freshman year and because it's year one, I'm going to start at the beginning of the season. He's going to fluctuate in the kind of 16 to 18 range. And then that will tick up as he gets more comfortable with D1 and the Big 12 and so on and so forth. I would guess he's close to a 20-point-a-game guy. If you're like 17 plus in college, you're pretty good. You're a pretty good player. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he was in the 23 to 25 range. I mean, what we saw with Jimmer was crazy. He was 28.9. I mean, that means you're putting up 30. That means you're putting up 30 pieces on the reg. You're getting a 40 in there. A.J. DeBonce is going to score in double figures in most halves. He's going to be a fun player to watch. Excited to watch him in the McDonald's All-American game tonight. And then he's a good rebounder too. And he's going to have a couple assists. I think about 5 boards a game. And the hope is he's a 35% plus three-point shooter and 45% plus from the field. It'll be less about efficiency with him and more about effectiveness, I think. Obviously, they want to get to an efficient place. But you can't stare at Richie Saunders and try and compare. Like, Richie's efficiency is unique. He's an excellent finisher at the rim. AJ is too. He's going to throw down quite a bit. Fun dunk over Angel Reese last night in the dunk contest. So, yeah, I'm excited to see, because his starting point is so high, like where he gets to. Like, Cooper Flagg came in with a lot of juice. He's gotten to a place where it's like, dude's putting up a 35-5 in the tourney. Like, that's incredible.
I almost I'm putting like a moratorium on myself of watching more Cooper Flagg and just even allowing any kind of hope that the Jazz can somehow draft that guy.
Oh, come on. We need him so bad. We need this one.
So bad.
We need this one.
That's
so bad.
Which is exactly why I won't even allow myself to think it, because the NBA is not going to let it happen.
You're not even going there?
No.
You're frozen envelope guy over here?
Yeah, I am that guy. Are you talking? Really, the new money owner is going to get the unicorn in his like 5th year owning a team? No way. They're not going to let that happen.
I don't know, man. Wherever Ryan Smith goes, good stuff happens. So I'm hoping, I'm praying, man. because I go and work at a bunch of Jazz games, and I'm like, I need to see some good ball here starting next year. This year's been tough. Obviously, there's a plan here. We're all trusting Danny and the boys. Let's see if we can't get Cooper. And if we don't get Cooper, there's some good talent in this draft too. But yeah, let's make the move in the next couple of years here.
All right, I don't want to move on from Debonsa just yet. A lot of the things that you see about him, there's all these NBA player analogs, these NBA player comparisons. This is who he's going to be when he eventually gets to the NBA. Give me that, but a BYU player, or like a Mighty Morphin Power
BYU
Rangers,
player?
like a
There's
morphing
never been a BYU player like AJ.
That's
the great thing.
A morphing of BYU players together to create an AJ Debonsa. Like give me the Power Rangers version of AJ Debonsa out of BYU players.
I'm more of a Transformers guy, but I feel you on that one. Okay, well, has BYU ever had a 6'9" guy that could move like he was 6'3"? Like, I'd have to think about that one. Because to me, there's some Lee Kamard in there. Lee was like just a crazy good shooter. AJ looks to me like he's strong, but like he just doesn't care that you're in his way on the way to the basket. Like, I love his ferociousness to the cup. Like, he has some sort of, I don't know. I'll have to come back to you on that one. I'll give you a good one next time we chat.
That's fine.
I'll give you a good one.
I'm right with it.
I got to think about it because that's a great question. I need more time to postulate on that one.
You did just mention Lee Kamard, and he's been named the women's basketball coach at BYU. Your thoughts on this? And it seems like everyone's greeted that news with enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And if you hear any noise or crackling, I'm cooking 2 T-bone steaks right now
Ooh,
on the grill. So that's what's going on.
That's very nice of you to think of us here.
Yeah. Come on, James, Sean, come on down, boys. Let's go. I got lunch. A Caesar and a couple T-bones here.
Love that.
Lee Kamard's the man. I was in school at the same time as Lee. No one has a bad thing to say about Lee Kamard. This is a guy who was a great player at BYU, loves BYU, understands what BYU is. He was on the men's staff with Dave Rose for a year or two, and then he's been with the women's staff the last couple of with Juddy, with Whiting. Now's the perfect time for Lee Kamard. He's a guy who understands the modern game, metrics, threes, pace, loves the challenge of the Big 12, loves what BYU is and understands what it can be. He's the greatest coach BYU could have hired to retain Delaney Gibb, its superstar freshman. Also to retain Kaylee Woolston, who led the nation in three-point shooting, who's on a mission in Baltimore. So I love the hire. I love Lee. I think it's going to be awesome.
Jerem Jordan, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things BYU. BYU spring football wrapping up, and they'll wrap up a little bit earlier as Utah's just getting started here. What are you hearing out of Kalani Sitake's camp and how things are going down there with BYU spring football practice?
I did 4 or 5 interviews yesterday with kind of the post-spring interviews with BYU, and like you mentioned, yeah, they're done. You know what? I've reached the T-bone 150 for medium well here. I got to pull these bad boys out.
You've got a meat thermometer in there?
Of course I do.
Wow.
I do. Yeah.
But,
I'm not going to just eyeball this.
Can we get to the bottom of the fact that this man is it's a random Tuesday afternoon and he's busting out Caesar salad and steaks? Jerem, I had a complete.
I'm at home right now. This is great. I'm living. I did the show this morning. I came home. Here we are.
I had a different view of what kind of lap of luxury you're living in here. I thought you were more a man of the people.
I'm in the poor part of Mapleton. Okay. I'm not up by Zach Wilson's house.
No such thing.
No such thing. Back to spring ball. A lot of good conversation with a lot of guys yesterday about sort of what the chip on the shoulder is, like what's the motivation for this group. They feel like they should have done a better job of finishing strong last year and gotten into the playoff. So that and gotten into the Big 12 title game. So that's kind of their motivation, because last year was easy, in my opinion, Sean, to be like, no one thinks we can do it. Vegas has 4.5 wins. We're picked 13th. It's easy to get motivated when that happens. It's like, yeah, no one thinks we can do it. They decided this year it's not just that. We got to take it up a notch, which I like, because, frankly, you have to have some good bounces. You have to have a few lucky moments. You got to stay healthy. And if BYU does, they certainly will be in the mix. But it is hard to recreate that. Like, you don't automatically build from what you did the year before. So BYU is putting in the time and the effort like they're not being considered for that. Like they have to put in that work. And I think guys are motivated. They understand what it takes to win. They saw some success. They got a taste of the glory, as Nacho Libre talks about. And they want to take it up a notch. So guys are motivated. The leadership's good. The culture's good. I think they continue to bring in great talent, as we saw yesterday with another linebacker coming in who will have an impact on the edge for BYU. So I'm excited, man. It should be another great fall. And I think the schedule is pretty favorable for BYU.
I saw something. Josh Pate was talking about this, right? That he thinks BYU football's got the easiest schedule for any team that should be relevant in the Power Four.
Yes, and with that said, last year we walked into the season and I was like, oh man, BYU got a tough draw here. And then some of those teams weren't as good as we thought. Obviously, Utah didn't have the year it was hoping for. Kansas didn't look good, and then suddenly they went on a heater and beat 3 ranked teams in a row.
Yeah.
That was a tough loss for BYU. Like Arizona State obviously picked last, wins the league. So you just don't know. Like right now it looks like one thing. We'll see when it shakes out. But certainly BYU feels like, hey, if we can kind of keep doing what we were doing and they retain a lot of pieces. They didn't add a ton in the portal. They felt like year one when they came in the Big 12, they added like 31 dudes, and it just didn't work initially. But that next year, once they had a little more continuity, that had some value, and I think BYU feels like they have the talent to compete for a Big 12 title, which obviously is the goal every year.
I preface asking you this question with the statement that I think that Kalani and company have built a really nice culture at BYU, and so like it's probably insulated from some of what's happening in the rest of college football because it is a unique place. And even though we're the home of the Utes, I'm not going to pretend that's not true. They were a surprisingly good team last year, though, and there were players who were surprisingly good, even though like there was not a singular star necessarily. There were guys that outperformed expectations and became household names sort of when we didn't know that was going to be the case. And I wonder if you could tell me how the dynamic changes when you're a surprisingly good team, especially in the NIL era, and you're a surprisingly good player, especially in the NIL era, because sometimes even coaches have it sneak up on them, where there's a guy who's just like, oh, wow, like this dude. I'll use Isaiah Glasker as an example. I don't know if he really qualifies because they were high on him, but like this guy's actually –
But he hadn't proven it.
Yeah, he's better than we thought he was, than anyone thought he was. This is little baby Kyle Van Noy, and we didn't know that was going to be the case with him. How much does it change that whole dynamic when now that guy, justifiably, because it's pro sports now, can come to you and say, I proved it last year, and I deserve this now? Or I guess it's probably his agent that's doing that, not the player himself. And again, I know at BYU they're managing it pretty well, and at Utah they're managing it pretty well. But this does happen in college sports. So what do you know about the dynamic change?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did talk to Isaiah yesterday, and I said, hey, how closely did you look at going pro? He said, I looked, and I got a little bit of feedback. But he's like, ultimately, I just want to be here and win. And so I think he knows that, like, if he has a similar year, which he had an outstanding year, like you mentioned, it was like KVN-esque, like lots of tackles for loss, lots of PBUs, 3 picks. Like, this guy was all over the place. 6'5", rangy. He's gained 51 pounds since he showed up on campus. To be
what?
Like he said he was a 189-pound linebacker, safety when he showed up, and now he's a beefy 240-pound backer. Like I said, dude, how do you gain that much weight? And he's like, the Breakfast Club. I was like, what's the Breakfast Club? And he said, 6 a.m., Justin Enna, we pound 2 PB&Js and 2 core protein shakes, and that's how we gained the weight. I was like, do you get nauseous? He's like, yeah. Like, you know that life, Sean. I do not know that life. But you're exactly right. I think with BYU, they're competitive in NIL, and then you have guys that love the culture, that love to be at the school. Like, it's not a place where if you're just 100% for the money, you're going to enjoy the process. Like AJ DeBonsa certainly likes the NIL, I'm sure, but he loves Kevin Young. He loves the fan base. Like, there's a lot of elements to this. And I don't think there's entitlement or expectation of something radically different. I think these BYU guys understand what BYU is and like how that they do it a little differently now. And I think they're excited for it. And a guy like Isaiah, when he says, you know what, I want to win. I want to do this. Jake Retzloff's excited. I get it. Like, and again, it was magical last year. There were some games that were awesome, and you don't always get those bounces. The hope is that BYU doesn't make it so close against the winless Oklahoma State team. But if you do, that you can make a play or two here or there to win, and they feel confident they've got a group that's ready to keep that going and build off it.
So Isaiah Glasker gained that weight with the Breakfast Club, and Jerem Jordan is in the Lunch Club having 2 T-bone steaks and a Caesar salad on a random Tuesday afternoon. So
I'm counting it up right now. You just tell me how much you want here. I got you, dog.
Look, I don't need to be gaining 51 pounds like he did. Okay,
Right?
I got to go the opposite direction.
Yeah. Hey, next time I see you at a Utah Hockey Club game, I'll pay for the next 51-pound whatever weight gain food we can afford there. Did you hear about Coastal Carolina, by the way, football? They said concessions will be free this year.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. James and I are going to make a special trip, and Jerem, it is 4 items per trip to the counter. You know how many trips I'm going to take to that counter?
So many trips.
So many trips.
51 pounds. One time I went to a Dodgers game, a playoff game against the Padres, and I sat in right field, and it was like, I feel like we were the only white dudes here. It was like a ton of Mexicans. It was super fun. I loved it. And like, it was free. So for your ticket, they claim free, but you're paying for it. Hot dogs, popcorn, nachos, drink, unlimited. It was like the greatest baseball game I've ever been to. Super fun people, super fun food with the homies. Like, it was awesome. Like, this is the future. I know that food is like straight crap, but like, I'm kind of willing to eat crap when I just go to a random baseball game, I guess.
The price is right.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. Yeah, this is gonna work out for Chanticleer's football like the unlimited shrimp worked out for Red Lobster. There's gonna be some big old hosses that show up at that stadium and are like, I'm getting my money's worth. You upcharge this ticket, I'm gonna get that back.
I love it, dude. You don't have to tell me to get them Cheddar Bay biscuits. So good, dude. Come on, man.
Well, Jerem, always great talking to you. I appreciate your time and your insight, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Jerem Jordan, our resident BYU insider, BYU Sports Nation, and apparently just a gourmand who's cooking himself up a fantastic lunch on a Tuesday afternoon, making me hungry.
He finally gets a midday off, and he's just living it up.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do.
Good for him.
Look, concessions are not going to be free at the new Hive for the Salt Lake Bees, but they are going to have a bunch of great deals. They're going to have firework and drone nights throughout the season. Sunday brunch, every Sunday home game. Bark in the Park is happening 9 times this year where you could take your dog. They got Superman night. They've got cowboy theme night. They've got the Abejas nights where they wear the alternate uniforms for the Spanish language minor league baseball stuff. And by the way, the Bees alternate uniforms are the freshest and the coolest in the entire league. The ballpark at America First Square is designed for year-long use, so they're going to have concerts. They're going to have other things. But what it's really about is baseball. April 8th through the 13th, opening week. Not just opening day, opening week for Bees baseball, the inaugural season at the ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. I have a great affection for Smith's Ballpark. I'm going to miss not going to Bees games there, but you know what? Everything I have seen, everything I have heard about the ballpark at America First Square is that this is elite, world-class, Major League Baseball level facilities for the players, the coaches, the athletic trainers, and, of course, very family-oriented, as they put it, right? Smack dab in the middle of one of the fastest-growing communities in the United States of America, and, of course, in our home state of Utah. We'll see you out there at the ballpark, April 8th through the 13th for Bees baseball. All right, the head coach of Utah football, Kyle Whittingham, next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Sean O'Connell Show continues here on a snowy Tuesday, 1st of April. Yikes. We're lucky enough to be joined by the head coach of Utah football, who's in spring football practice, Kyle Whittingham, once again on the home of the Utes. Coach, how are you?
Doing good, OC. How you doing?
Doing all right. You're a man of considerable influence. Is there anything you can do about this seasonal snow? I'm over it, Coach.
Well, my weather guy here in the office says it's going to stop around 1 o'clock. So if we can get that and get our fields plowed, then we'll be in good shape. So I think look forward to some clearing this afternoon.
If the weather guy is wrong and it's still a nasty day, will you make the guys go out and practice in the snow, or is it better to
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Done deal. No question. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so we've been hearing from a lot of people, players, folks up around the program, that this spring camp in particular, there's just a little bit of a different vibe, a little bit of extra energy and a little more pop. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. And, we have some new additions on the coaching staff, a bunch of new additions on the roster. And this group seems to have a lot of juice and energy. And we've had 5 practices so far and haven't had a bad one yet. They've all been very spirited. And the kids come out with the right attitude and the right mentality. And so far it's been very productive.
So, very famously, when someone comes to the Utah program, they become you don't become them. But I imagine with a bunch of new coaches, there is somewhat of an altered dynamic, at least maybe in film sessions, coaches' meetings, etc. Is that accurate, and how would you describe it if so?
Yeah, every coach has his own personality and how he approaches things and teaching methods and that type of thing. And it just so happens, the guys we've added are really high energy guys and have a lot of juice, and that's really infused the offense, in particular, with a new. I wouldn't say a new attitude, but a very energetic atmosphere.
In the early goings, are you getting what you were hoping for out of this new offense?
Yeah, we're still got a long ways to go. We have 10 more practices. We need every single one of them. Then we'll need the entire summer and fall camp and all the preparation that we can find. But so far there's a lot of positives going on. Really helps that Devin Dampier is really in essence like a returning starter. He knows the offense inside and out, and so he's not having to learn anything. He's got a complete grasp of it, and if your quarterback has a complete grasp of it, that's a great starting point. And he is really a dynamic football player. He's electric when the ball's in his hands.
Yeah, everyone who's taken the time to go back and look at some New Mexico film or was able to watch them during last season, I think has been impressed what they saw from that film. Now that he's in a Utah uniform and you've started this project installing him as a, like you said, effective returning starter in the offense, his performance been as advertised or as expected for you and the reason you guys wanted to bring him in?
Absolutely. He's still getting used to new teammates and how we do things here at Utah, but he's fit right in. Attitude is phenomenal. Great leadership, and that's what you look for in your quarterback. You want your quarterback to be one of the leaders on the team, if not the leader. And he was voted to the Leadership Council 2 weeks after having only been here for 2 weeks, and so that's a very positive sign that vote takes place by his peers, and the players elect those guys, and so he's already won the respect of his teammates, and he's doing a great job for us.
Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking a little spring football. Speaking of leadership, you did lose some vocal leaders, some seasoned guys on the defensive side of the ball. They're off to pursue NFL opportunities, guys like Junior Tafuna, Karene Reed, who felt to me like he was kind of the pulse of that defense in a lot of games last year. So on the defensive side, have the guys you thought would emerged as replacement leaders, as the new voices on that defense? Maybe somebody unexpected stepped up. Is the leadership on the defense what you need it to be right now?
It is. It's solid, and everything's obviously got room for improvement. But Lander Barton and Logan Fano have been voted our captains on defense, and they're doing an outstanding job. And as well as some other people, Teo Johnson's a leader for us on defense. Nate Ritchie, Lavani Damuni, Aliki Vimahi. And so we've got quite a few guys that have stepped up, and that's the nature of college football. You lose great leaders and players every year, and it's now it's time for the next regime to step in and take over that role.
What is Spencer Fano like as a leader? He's a guy that is appearing already on all the preseason All-America lists, and I know that those are only worth the paper they're printed on, but we think that he could be that level of a player. And some guys that are that good just like to go out there quietly do the job. Some guys like to, lead from the front and pull guys along with them. How is Spencer Fano as a leader?
He's doing a great job, and he's a little of both of what you just described. He goes about his business and takes care of his job, but he'll speak his mind every now and then. He's not the most vocal guy out there on the field, but everybody respects the way he plays and the just the level of ability that he has, and he's certainly, if not the best offensive tackle in the country, one of the top offensive tackles in the country, and he's going to be a guy that plays a vital role for us this fall.
Yeah, the guy opposite him, not too bad either. In fact, your entire offensive line, it seems to be in really good shape. Has it played out that way so far in spring?
So far, yes. They're they've been the centerpiece, I guess you could say, of the offense. And if you have a good offensive line, then you get a chance to be good regardless of what type of scheme you're running. And we've got some good players up front. Caleb Lomu, who's the player you were alluding to, playing opposite of Spencer Fano with the left tackle spot. And then we've got Jaron Kump at the center spot, who's doing a great job for us. And Michael Mokafisi's not able to participate in spring ball. He's got a little minor injury going on, but he should be fine for the fall. And then Tanoa Tongiai, the left guard, is a 6'6", 320-pound road grader that is very athletic. So we've got some guys up front, and we've also got some depth. It's not just those first five guys. We've got a solid five behind them. At least that's what we think right now.
When you have those names, those bodies, that level of experience on the offensive line, as you're installing a new offense, as you're integrating new skill players, all new running back room, et cetera, does that consistency on the offensive line make this installation process easier?
It does, although they've got a learning curve as well. Even though they're all returning starters now, they're going to be returning starters in a different scheme,
right?
And so they've been going through the same learning curve that everybody else has, with the exception of the three kids that we got from New Mexico that transferred in. But their ability is unquestioned, and their work ethic is great, and the attitude is great. So we expect them to be one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12 this year.
When spring camp started, you were asked about where the main position battles were, and I think if I remember correctly, you talked about one of the corner spots, maybe the wide receiver room, running back. Obviously, there's some uncertainty with all new guys there. You're still very early in spring camp, but has there been any clarity starting to emerge on who the guy or the guys are going to be at those positions?
Well, running back Wayshawn Parker has really stepped to the forefront. We expected that, and that has happened. He's doing an outstanding job, and so that's been a positive. Rogers' kid is also doing a great job at running back. He'd probably be the number 2 guy right now. We've also been very pleased with Daniel Bray, the freshman. He was the fastest kid on the team when we timed a month ago. He ran like a 4.32, and so he can blaze. He's got a guy, and he looked at him, and he was moving. So we feel like we've sorted things out. At least got a good start on sorting things out at the running back spot. Receivers, a little different issue. Still haven't found guys that want to step up and take over and be the guy, and so that's an ongoing process right now. We got to get that solved, and that those guys got to start making plays for us, and because as good as the offensive line is expected to be, and with the run game that we potentially think we have, it won't. People will just load the box up if we can't make them respect the throw game, and so we've got to. That's a work in progress. The receiver room. That's not. We got some talented guys in there. We just got to have 2 or 3 of them step up and take charge, and that hasn't happened yet. Now again, it's only been 5 practices, so there's no panic, but we need that to sort itself out. We're starting to get some clarity at corner, opposite Scooby Davis. The guys we brought in from the portal are really doing a good job. Blake Cotton and Donovan Saunders and the Caldwell kids, and the Caldwell kids. So we have good competition going on there, but by no means is that settled yet, and it'll continue to be a competition throughout spring.
Kyle Whittingham for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking Utah spring football. With this new environment that you live in as a head coach, you have, spring, you have time to develop players. That's something that we've always talked about as a strength of this Utah program with you and your assistant staff, identifying talent and then developing that talent. Is it more crucial now than ever that you identify the right guys and that you're able to develop them early, because there's no guarantee you're going to have the time that you used to have in order to get the most out of these players?
Yeah, everything has been accelerated, and you're right. You develop your guys through spring, and then you got to hold on because the portal opens up in the middle of April, and you got another 2-week free agency. For all intent and purposes, that's what it is, a free agency period for them, and so it's you're reviewing and solidifying your roster twice a year, after the season in December when the first portal opening happens, then in April when the second one. And so it's still, a lot of things can happen between now and fall, but we're just we're focusing on, just like you said, getting our guys developed and make them making each player in the program, as fundamentally and technique sound as we can get them, and then hope we are able to have great retention on our roster.
When you talk about that retention, Coach, do you feel like you have to batten down the hatches and be secretive about who's having a good spring camp and, protect the good film? I mean, you're letting us watch 20 minutes of practice, which, thank you. But, do you feel like you got to protect your secrets? I spoke with some other coaches, guys who are not at University of Utah, not at quite as big of a school, but they're like, look, we're not letting high school coaches come. We're not letting parents come. We don't want anybody who might have cell phone video or just a strong opinion to make a phone call to a bigger school like, hey, go get this guy. Do you have to protect your secrets more than ever?
Well, there's an argument for that. I don't believe in just being scared about everything all the time, and so we're going about our business in a normal fashion. We're at this point in time, we're still planning on having a spring game, and we just hope that our players are have the culture and everything we have going here is enough to keep them, wanting to stay around and wanting to stick with us. Now, there is, if you get an NIL deal that's off the charts, I mean, you're gonna lose guys. That's just how it is. We don't have the resources that a lot of the schools have in that space right now, and so we're kind of at the mercy of that for that to happen. But like I said, we just hope that they have having a great experience here and want to stick with us.
All right. Outside of spring football, Coach, Utah basketball just finished up their season in the College Basketball Crown new tournament down in Vegas, which was kind of an interesting experiment. And it'll be Alex Jensen moving forward. And a little bird told us here at ESPN 700 that you might have actually been pretty instrumental in getting that thing across the finish line. And Alex Jensen might have had some questions for you that you helped answer and quieted his worries about coming back to his alma mater. What can you tell me about that process or that conversation if it happened?
Well, I'm an Alex Jensen fan. I always have been. I watched him closely when he was here. When I first came to the University of Utah, he was playing for Coach Majerus, and what a competitor and just a high character individual, and has done such a great job, in his career in the NBA. And I'm really excited to watch what he can do here. And yeah, we did have a conversation and talked about a lot of things. I don't want to go into any details, but I think Alex is a great fit for this program, this basketball program here at Utah, and I'm excited to see what he can do.
It is April Fool's Day, Coach. Has anyone ever successfully pranked you on April Fool's Day? Have you ever successfully pranked anyone else?
I'm not a pranker guy, so I don't think I've ever got anybody else, and I'm sure I've been gotten somewhere along the line. I can't remember exactly when, but so far nothing today. We're all good so far today, so we'll see what happens.
All right, well, we'll try to keep it that way. Always appreciate you giving us some time here on the Home of the Utes, Coach. Good luck with the rest of the spring. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, OC. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham, gracious with his time, as always, here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I wish we would have got a little bit more detail about what his conversation with Alex Jensen included, but not surprised that Coach was a little bit tight-lipped about it. All right, lots of takeaways from that conversation, including the preservation of the spring game and business as usual on the access front, if we want to call it that. We'll get to that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Make sure you're checking in on all things Utah Spring football at ESPN 792.1 FM. All the coverage you need, sound on the website, brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Head to ESPN700sports.com for all the details. All right, Tony Jones next, and then two of the great volleyball players in the history of this state, Danny Drews and Ronnie Jones-Perry, now pro players for the Love Volleyball Salt Lake. They are closing out their season. They're at least a home stand at Bruin Arena coming up this week, and we'll have them here in studio. Looking forward to that conversation with Danny Drews and Ronnie Jones-Perry. That's coming up in about 35 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. Big thanks to Kyle Whittingham for joining us, giving us a few minutes. And, you know, look, it's spring football, so you take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. But there is a lot of optimism right now, both publicly and behind the scenes, over what this offense is looking like at the moment for Utah football. But there was one thing in there with Kyle Whittingham that I wanted to highlight. There are a lot of schools right now that are doing things a little bit differently from an access standpoint in the spring football cycle to try to protect their players from the transfer portal. And I asked Kyle Whittingham about that, and he effectively said, we just can't live scared all the time. I think that's a massively important stance for Utah football to have right now, because it would be very easy to sort of retreat into yourself and be withdrawn. That's what happened last year with the injury situation with Cam Rising. It was like, hey, don't anybody say anything about anything. And it created this sort of adversarial relationship almost between Utah football and its fan base and the media. Everyone was mad at everyone. The media was mad at the team for not giving proper access and information. Fans were mad at the coaching staff and the team for not really letting people know.
Fans were mad at us, the media, for not telling them things.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
why don't you
can't
guys
tell you
know?
something we don't know.
Ask the question you're supposed to ask. You're just like, guys,
Yeah.
the response to those questions is no comment. So it was a really, really difficult time, and to live scared. And I will say that maybe is too strong of a statement, but it was leaning in that direction of just being like, hey, we're not going to say anything. We're not going to do anything that could compromise things. And to be willing to kind of push outside of that box in this spring and say, look, I mean, they've had alumni events where the Sugar Bowl team was back at practice, brought families, did that whole thing. They have high school coaches going and still doing the clinics and things like that. There are teams that are not doing that. Utah State is not doing that. They're doing none of that right now because they don't want their best players to get phone calls from Utah and BYU.
And like Witt said, it's a very strong argument to operate that way. It's not crazy
No, it's absolutely
to do that
not.
at all. But I'm with you, though. I like that Witt's stance as of this moment, because things can always change, is we can't live scared. We're gonna still do what we've always done.
The other thing about it is, if you're going to get back to being the big dog on the block that you grew into in the Pac-12, as one of the big dogs on the block, I should say, you just have to carry yourself that way.
Yeah.
As a culture, as a team,
It's
as
almost-
a program, you have to say, all right, you don't want to be here? Bye.
It's almost like, I was going to say, it almost is like a flex that, hey, we're going to do that, even though we know Witt doesn't flex like that. He just says what he thinks, right? But he's not doing it for any reason to make himself or his program look any better. It's just the way that he feels is the right way to do it. But it is a bit of a flex to be able to say, yeah, we're not going to be scared. We're going to do the things the way we've always done it.
Yeah, and there's look, maybe you lose a player because of it, but again, you don't want guys who don't want to be with you. And that's just something that we all have to accept. I all season long last year, I would pull up on Sundays, I would pull up and see what Jaquindon Jackson's rushing stats were from Arkansas. Dang it, I wish that guy was at the University of Utah. Not because I don't like Mekhi Bernard, but because you needed more depth in the running back room. And Jaquindon proved to be a great running back and would have been an awesome asset to have for a Utah offense that just was rough. I found myself on certain weeks being like, what do Bryson Barnes' stats look like this week? Because he's a quarterback you had in the room and he left, right? But at the end of the day, you just have to accept and have to embrace that guys are going to end up where they belong. Because if you're not all the way committed to a program like the University of Utah, you don't belong there. And if money can draw you away, I don't begrudge you that. If a cultural difference at BYU can draw you away, I don't begrudge you that. I just am getting on board with the idea that you just have to roll with these punches, and this coaching staff, I think, has done a pretty good job of it. But making sure that you're not, like, fretting over it and getting all sweaty palmed and bad attitude when it does happen, I think is massively important as the culture adjusts to the landscape. The landscape is not going to adjust to the Utah football culture. The Utah football culture has to adjust to the landscape somewhat. And that's a difficult thing. Institutions don't like to change in response to the world.
So
churches don't like to do it. Football programs don't like to do it. Banks don't like to do it. Universities don't like to do it. But it has to be done. You have to at least wiggle a little bit in order to meet people where they are. And this team, knowing that, like, there's a bunch of other and like right now, Colorado is this way. They just do things their way unapologetically. Utah's swinging back this way, thank goodness. BYU is this way right now in football. They're just like, hey, you know what? This is a unique place. If you fit in here, great. We'd love to have you. If you don't, see you later. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, whether you love him or hate him, give him credit. He does things and he says things the way that he wants to. He doesn't filter himself to make recruits happy, to make boosters happy, to make fans happy. He just says what he's going to say. I don't love everything that he does, but in any case, I like that. I like that part of my conversation with Kyle Whittingham where I was like, hey, are you hiding things? And he's like, you can't live scared, man.
Yeah, loved it. So you're telling me, though, that the whole you become us, we become you doesn't work with the outside world. When Witt says, hey, transfer portal and Wild Wild West NIL, you become Utah football, okay?
You do it like Utah football. We don't adapt to you. We're not doing NIL. We're not doing transfers. Clemson tried that for a couple of years. Yeah, and Dabo finally had to be like, all right, we'll bring in a couple at least.
And then look at that. They made the playoff. Yeah, like, totally joking about that. It seems absurd to say that, but you're right. It's a great example with Clemson. There are football coaches, there are programs in the country, well-respected ones, some less respected, who think that they can do that. They think that they can make the outside culture adapt to their culture, and that's not necessarily the case. And most of the time, it's not the case at all.
I think more importantly, coaches are realistic enough to kind of be like, all right, well, I'm not going to do what Dabo did and cut off the transfer portal completely. The coaching staff at Stanford doesn't have a choice because the institution won't adjust its admissions policies.
You mean Frank Reich?
Frank Reich,
new interim head coach.
That's right. Frank Reich is like, we were debating this before the show started. Frank Reich got that job. Did he get that job? Andrew Luck said, hey, I'm going to make you the interim head coach. Or did he say, I'm going to make you the head coach? And Frank Reich was like, how about interim? How about let's
let's throw an interim on there.
Let's just make sure that I actually want to do this long term. You know what I mean? We don't know. But the more important thing about that adjustment or lack thereof to the modern landscape of college football and college basketball for that matter, and college volleyball and gymnastics and everything else, you either want to play the games that people are playing right now or you don't. Alex Jensen, when we get him on, I'm going to ask him, do you want to have to do this? Or was this like I'm willing to suffer through this because I'm doing 6 years at my alma mater for $3.5 million? Or is it like, ugh? Kyle Whittingham doesn't like this landscape, but he will still participate in it because he loves football and he loves being the head coach at the University of Utah. There are a lot of guys who have thrown their hands up and said, broadcasting instead. Nick Saban did that. Arguably the greatest coach in the history of college football was just like, this sucks. I'm out.
Super energetic too. Like he's in his 70s, but he doesn't look or act like he's in his 70s. That's a guy who looks like he has the physical stamina and the mental capacity to continue coaching, and he said he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Saban walked away on his own terms, and that's fine, but there's no one in the world that can convince me it wasn't at least partially attached to the changes that have happened in college football. And that's something for Kyle Whittingham that he's adjusted to. And honestly, he's adjusted to it as well as we could expect him to adjust. If he has to bend any more to this new era, I think there's no more Kyle Whittingham as head coach of the University of Utah. I think if he has to keep going, if he has to push past his thoughts, his principles a little bit more, he'll be like, all right, now it's time to go. And there are Utah fans that think that with the succession plan in place, that's coming after this season anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. But what we got was a conversation with Kyle Whittingham, who confirmed that everybody is re-energized at the University of Utah. And, of course, the question after that becomes, do you actually win the games you're supposed to win this year? Are you back? Some people think it's an absolute yes. Some people think that we won't pass that way again anytime soon for Utah football. So we'll see. Got to take a quick break here. We'll start hour number 3 with Tony Jones. Yes, that Tony Jones, NBA and Utah Jazz insider. Playoffs approaching for a lot of people, not so much for the Jazz. We'll talk Cooper Flag and everything else. It's Utah's number one sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Starting hour number 3 on the Sean O'Connell Show with one of our favorites, Tony Jones, Jazz, Nuggets, and NBA insider at The Athletic, friend of the program. Tony Jones, welcome back. How are you?
My guy, thank you for having me.
Always appreciate you giving us some time. I want to get your thoughts on, look, when I tune into a Sports Center highlight and I'm seeing NBA basketball that turns into an absolute brawl, I don't mind it. I know that that's not the favorite thing for the league to see, and it sometimes gets a little bit sloppy, but your thoughts on the Timberwolves-Pistons fight that has now resulted in some suspensions?
It was interesting because, there were a lot of layers to it. Isaiah Stewart approaching Dante DiVincenzo at half court, minutes before the brawl, which kind of precipitated the entire thing. Ron Holland kind of shoulder chucking Naz Reid, which, Naz Reid took exception to the foul. And then, Dante DiVincenzo probably upset that, he couldn't really go at Isaiah Stewart, goes at Ron Holland, kind of yanks him up, throws him baseline. I like it. Like, we're at the time of the year where, teams are really, sick and tired of seeing each other. It's like game 75, the playoffs are on the horizon. You can see, and you can see the kind of the pot at the end of the rainbow, but at the same time, you still have a handful of regular season games left. And, you put two teams on the floor who are physical and who defend like the Timberwolves and the Pistons. I mean, it's, you kind of run the risk of it being the Hatfield and the McCoys. And the Pistons have, clearly, they've clearly embraced, the kind of bad boys redux image that they've been given, and they're just going out there, especially Isaiah Stewart. They're just going out there, looking for fights. I mean, there was almost a brawl with the Jazz earlier in the season, and there was the thing with the Pacers and Isaiah Stewart, and Isaiah Stewart took Giannis Antetokounmpo out of the air earlier in the season. I mean, this is clearly a team that's kind of embracing the image of going out and being tough guys, and and now you're seeing actual all-out brawls.
All right, you mentioned the short time we have left in this NBA regular season. The playoffs are right around the corner, and so we have a pretty good idea of who's a team and who's maybe an also-ran. How many, as of April 1st, April Fool's Day, how many teams would you say are capable of winning an NBA championship in this 2024-2025 cycle?
There's a difference between capable and, actual favorites. So, obviously I think the favorites are, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and Boston. Those are your three favorites. I would say that, in the Eastern Conference, I would say that Cleveland and Boston are probably the only two teams capable of winning it all. And this is much to my chagrin because, everybody knows how big a Knicks fan that I am. So, the fan in me wants to be airs on the negative side. So I'm gonna omit the Knicks from there. I would say in the Western Conference, I would say Oklahoma City. I would say Denver. I would say the Lakers. I would say that those three teams are probably the teams that are most capable of winning a championship. So I think we have a pool of about 5 teams that your title, your championship should come, your champion should come from. But I do think that it's going to be a really good playoff, and I think it's going to be a really competitive playoff.
In the West, your answer there reflects that, the standings don't necessarily give us the best teams when it comes to playoff basketball. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if you're going to say OKC's capable, Denver's capable, LA's capable, the Houston Rockets are the 2 seed right now in the West. So why don't they belong in that same conversation?
Well, the reason why I say that, I'll use the Lakers for an example. The reason why I say the Lakers are capable is because, you have 2 6'9" supercomputers on the floor.
Yeah.
And when you get to the playoffs, LeBron's not going to be playing 33 minutes a night in the playoffs. He's going to be playing 39 minutes a night. So, you're going to have to deal with LeBron and Luka on the floor for upwards to 40 minutes a night. And those guys are going to just slow a playoff series down, and they're going to make it possession by possession. And those guys, even against playoff defenses, are going to get the Lakers a good shot almost every single time down the floor. So in a playoff series, who is it on the Houston Rockets that can do that? Who is going to be the guy that can get, the Rockets a good shot in a playoff series over 7 games where the other team can focus solely on you and solely on what you do well and solely on what you don't do well? The Rockets don't have a closer. Alfred Sengun is a really, really, really good young center who's never been in a playoff before. Amen Thompson has never been in a playoff series before. Fred VanVleet is not a number 1. He's, a number 3 or a number 4 guy on a championship team. And Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks are 2 guys that can shoot you either in or out of a playoff series. And we've seen Dylan Brooks shoot a team out of a playoff series. So, the Rockets are at this point constructed to win a lot of regular season games. They're young. They defend the heck out of the ball. That's their shining. That's their shining skill set is the way they defend. They're versatile. They're super athletic. They're super long. But you get into a playoff series where, it's 105, 105, with 25 seconds to go. There are multiple other teams in the Western Conference who have better closers than them. So, it's the same thing with Denver. You have a guy in Nikola Jokic who's going to be the best player in any series that he plays in. You're going to have a puncher's chance, and that's the one thing with the Los Angeles Lakers. In any series that they play in, they're either going to have the best player in the series or they're going to have 2 of the 3 best players in the series. And, that's going to give them a chance. And, I think that we all know how good that Oklahoma City is this year and how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is this year.
How far out of that conversation are the Golden State Warriors? Because when you talk about closers, you've got a guy in Jimmy Butler who willed a franchise in the past to a deep run, and obviously we know that Steph Curry is a multiple-time MVP and a guy that, at his best, can win you championships.
I think that's interesting, and I think that's a great question. And this is what I will say. I think that the Los Angeles Lakers are a really bad matchup for the Golden State Warriors, and I think the Denver Nuggets are a really bad matchup for the Golden State Warriors. And the irony of this whole thing is I think Oklahoma City is a much better matchup for Golden State than Denver and LA. It doesn't mean that they're going to win a series against Oklahoma City. It just means the styles make fights and they match up better with Oklahoma City. So I can't see, obviously, there's playoff Jimmy Butler. Obviously, you can never ever sleep on Stephen Curry and how good he is and how excellent he is as a player. But I can't see them winning 3 series in the Western Conference because I just don't think that they're good enough. I think at some point their lack of length and their lack of athleticism, especially on the perimeter, is going to really haunt them. I think at some point, they're going to get into a playoff series where, they have too many people that have to play that other teams can hunt in a playoff format. So let's say they get into a series with the Lakers. Well, LeBron James is going to hunt Stephen Curry. LeBron James is going to hunt Brandon Podziemski. LeBron James is going to hunt Buddy Hield. He's going to hunt Guy Santos. Same thing with Luka. They're going to hunt all of those guys. And all four of those guys are guys that Oklahoma City has to play. I mean, Golden State has to play. They have to have those guys in the rotation, in the lineup. And, those are just way too many easy places that Golden State has defensively that other teams can go in a playoff format. At Golden State's peak, everybody looks at Stephen Curry and they look at Kevin Durant, but they were also the best defensive team in the league in those years. They had Andre Iguodala, they had obviously Draymond Green was at his peak. Obviously they had Sean Livingston. They had so many good, versatile defensive pieces that they were just able to go out there and lock teams down as well as explode on them offensively. And they're just not that kind of a defensive team anymore. They traded their best point of attack defender, Andrew Wiggins, in the Jimmy Butler deal. Jimmy Butler's nowhere near the defender that he was for as capable as he is offensively. So I just look at Golden State and I just see, too many weaknesses defensively for it to eventually matter. I think that they can get into the playoffs. I think that if they get the right matchup, if they get a Memphis, they could probably get to the second round. But at some point, I think that they're going to run into too many teams that can exploit them defensively.
Tony Jones, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Shifting the focus to the Utah Jazz, is there anything left to figure out with this roster, with this team in the final 2 weeks? Or are these guys just biting down and finishing out, trying not to win games that take them out of the best lottery odds?
Yeah, they just need to lose. They just need to lose every game for the remainder of the season. They at this point, you want the best lottery odds for Cooper Flagg, but more importantly, you want to set the floor for yourself. And if they have the best lottery odds, then the lowest that they can fall is 5. If they have the second best lottery odds, the lowest that they can fall is 6. So, if they have the best lottery odds, if they have the best lottery odds and you're looking at a floor of 5, then you're looking at a pool of Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and probably Trey Johnson out of Texas. That's a pretty good pool. You've guaranteed yourself a really, really, really good basketball player coming in next year. So, getting the best lottery odds, it's about Cooper Flagg because, he's a generational talent. But it's not just about Cooper Flagg. It's setting a floor for yourself. So there's only so far that you can fall in the lottery. And I think that the Jazz know that if they're in the top 5, then they're going to guarantee themselves a really good player. So, I don't think that there's anything to really find out about the roster, per se. I think, it bears watching to how the young guys, play it out, how hard they play, what's the professionalism, in this situation, because obviously it's not an easy situation, but you want to watch how professional a guy is, how professional, how a guy goes about his business on and off the floor in the last few weeks of what we know is the lost season. But, if you're the Jazz, you want to get that number one odds to try to win the lottery. But you also want to have those odds in order so you can't fall past pick number 5.
Cooper Flagg is the goal, and we're seeing him in what will be his only NCAA tournament. He's performed incredibly well so far. Have we learned anything new about him that we didn't already know?
I, I think that's a good question because, I think that, the one question that you had is, can he be a takeover guy in a high pressure, high leverage situation? And his Sweet 16 performance was, just absolutely terrific. He goes out, he has 30 points, he has 7 rebounds, he has 6 assists, but he puts out an array of, moves offensively that we, didn't necessarily, we thought that he could develop it, but we didn't necessarily know that he had. He's a much better offensive player right now than he was in November. And, the reason why he was such, a hot prospect is because, his ability to affect almost every possession on both sides of the floor, his ability to defend, his ability to be a solid point of attack defender, but also a defensive playmaker as well. And then when you add in, the fact that he's showing signs of being a number one option offensively, it just takes him as a prospect through the roof. I mean, he is not only the best prospect of the draft, he's the best prospect in the draft, by levels. And, and I think that every expectation that was placed upon him, he's met or exceeded at Duke. And he stepped into Duke, and he's been, the best player in the country by far, by leaps and bounds. Nobody else is even close. And, he's going to be able to step into the NBA as a starter from day one, probably no matter where he is drafted. And, he's got a chance, in my opinion, if he reaches 100% of his level, there is a chance one day, even with Victor Wembanyama on the face of this earth, there's a chance one day that he might have a chance to be the best player in the world someday. So, he's got a real chance to be, one of those guys that, is a Hall of Famer, an All-NBA guy for years, an All-Star for years. And I think that he's proven a lot this year in terms of what his ceiling is. He's the guy that I think that not only has the best floor in this draft, he also has the best ceiling in this draft. And I think that's a rare thing to have.
And that is why every Utah Jazz fan listening right now desperately wants to see the Utah Jazz at number 1 and get that guy to Salt Lake City. I'm still enough of a conspiracy theorist to think that the NBA is not going to let it happen, but I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope at the very least, Tony.
I try to temper expectations for Jazz fans, and I say, so here's the thing. The team with the number 1 odds in an NBA draft lottery hasn't actually won an NBA draft lottery in almost 20 years. So, if you're a Jazz fan, the prize is that you are guaranteeing yourself a top 5 pick. And obviously there's a 14% chance at Cooper Flagg, but you're guaranteeing yourself a floor, and there are 5 very, very, very good players in this draft.
Going to be fun to see how it all works out. Tony Jones will be on top of all of it. Make sure you read his stuff. Tony, thanks for your time as always, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Tony Jones, Jazz, Nuggets, overall basketball insider over at The Athletic. All right, we've got some volleyball royalty coming in our next segment. Danny Drews, the maybe the best athlete of the Barton family, if you pay attention to what the brothers have to say, and Ronnie Jones-Stanley. So we're going to talk some volleyball. As Love Volleyball Salt Lake wrapping up their season pretty soon. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, we're back on the Sean O'Connell Show. Don't worry, your mic wasn't on yet. ESPN 792.1 FM. All right, we have some volleyball royalty here from the state of Utah, in the state of Utah. One for the BYU fans, one for the Utah fans. Danny Drews, famously of maybe the most athletic family in Utah history. Is it safe to say that? The Barton family?
I've heard it been said before, but I don't know how you can measure that.
So. I think you can measure it when mom and dad are both two-sport athletes. The brothers all conference at least level performers, professionals and future professionals, and the only daughter of the family, right?
Yes.
Also an elite athlete. I think it's safe to say if everyone checks the box, that you guys get to be called the best, most athletic family in Utah history.
All right, I'll take it. Well, thank you.
So anyway, Danny Drews, happy to have you in here after watching your entire Utah career. First time we've actually met in person, so very nice to meet you. And Ronnie Jones-Perry, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
So Love Volleyball Salt Lake. You guys have been playing pro volleyball all over the world, and finally you get to do it on home soil. Not just like American soil, but you get to do it where you came up, right? Both of you played high school volleyball, for folks who don't know, not only locally, collegiately, but also back in high school. Ronnie, I want to start with you. The opportunity to represent your home country, your home state, to be here and pursuing professional volleyball dreams. How much has that meant to you this year?
It's been amazing. I mean, my family and friends have been super supportive when I've been overseas, but it's just a very different feeling having them able to watch the matches both on TV when we're away and be in the stands and chatting with me after when we're playing at home. It's been really incredible.
I imagine, I mean, I've never done it myself, but I imagine that being a pro athlete overseas has some perks to it. Seems pretty cool to like be living abroad and in Japan and Poland and all these Brazil, these places that people go on vacations, right?
Yep.
That go out of their way to try to travel there, and you got to go live there and pursue the dream of playing volleyball. What was the best part of that experience for you?
I think just getting to experience other cultures, because I mean, you can go vacation somewhere and see the things to see and like kind of get a taste for the culture, but when you're living in a city for 8 months of the year, you really get to understand the people and the area on a deeper level. So I think that was the coolest thing for me.
And Danny, you did the same thing, right? According to your Wikipedia, Poland, Italy, Japan, here in the U.S. Favorite stop on that whole tour?
Yeah, I'll have to say Japan.
Yeah.
It was amazing living and playing there. And Ronnie touched on it's very different when you're a tourist. You get to go sightseeing, but then to actually be immersed in the culture and to feel somewhat like a local, it's awesome.
What's the level of volleyball like here in this? Love Volleyball, for people who don't know, it's new. It's a domestic league, trying to make it possible for you all to do this without having to go overseas. As cool as that experience probably is, professional volleyball hasn't caught on in the United States just yet the same way it has overseas. Hopefully this is the solution to that problem. The level of volleyball here in this league compared to what you were playing internationally, what is it like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have all the right pieces. Every team has so much talent. We have Olympians, we have world champions, we have All-Americans. I think, yeah, the talent is there, the idea is there, and I think as the league continues to grow and just with more time, people getting into that flow, I think the level has the potential to be, tip-top. And it is really tough even now, and I just think in our first season to be able to play the high level that we're playing at now, I'm really excited as we grow and continue. I think it's going to be just insanely competitive. Ronnie,
you're asked not just to be a great volleyball player, but to come in and do lame interviews on the radio, to kind of be like an evangelist for the sport, to help grow the league and to grow the sport. Do you like that role? Is that something that comes naturally for you?
For me, absolutely not. I'm happy to do it here because I really want this league to do well. And it's fun to like have my grandma be like, I saw you on TV this morning. And, that kind of stuff's fun. But really, I just hope that we can kind of get the message out there that this is a really fun sport to watch, even if you don't know anything about it. So do I enjoy it? Not very much. Am I willing to do it? Yes.
I'm all for evangelism, so I'm excited to do it. I'm happy to do it.
So you embrace that role. You like kind of like preaching the gospel of volleyball.
Yes, and the real gospel too.
Okay.
No, but
let's not get into a debate. What's the real?
You're right. Keep this PC.
This is a sports show only.
No, but I think it's amazing and fulfilling to be able to interact with the younger athletes. I remember growing up, pro volleyball was kind of a mystery. You didn't really have a model to look at. So to be able to, be a resource to young athletes who are debating what they want to do with their future, I think it's amazing, and it's something I love to get to do. And I love spreading the word and annoying everyone on my contact list to come to the games.
The infrastructure of volleyball development here in the state of Utah, you guys obviously achieved like super high level volleyball, and I know that the universities do well, and I don't know much beyond that in terms of like the club teams here. I know it's a wild sport, like nationally, internationally. Do we have the infrastructure down at the bottom level? We're seeing in hockey now that we have a pro hockey team, right? A lot of investment, and pretty soon you're going to have little kids growing up playing hockey in Utah for the first time. what is it like volleyball-wise in Utah right now? Are we developing top talent from a national and I guess even international perspective?
I would say at the youth level, yes. And that's kind of been an anomaly here where we have really strong youth volleyball and we have a strong club structure. But the next step, the professional thing, is kind of what we've been missing. And that's something that League One has tried to tie into and kind of build the league from. So I think we're in a good place with that. And like I said, like the youth system here is very competitive in Utah and just nationally.
When you guys are watching college athletics now and all the changes that have happened in college athletics, you're already laughing. There are athletes that are like getting paid nice, like really good money, transferring from school to school, doing the whole thing. What is it like for, some of the all-time greats from the state of Utah that you guys committed and you played and you took your scholarship check and your meal plan and were like, thank you very much. Now you're watching all this happen. What was it like for you?
Honestly, I feel really grateful I'm not in college now. I wouldn't change a thing. I think my career, I was faced with, different challenges and adversity throughout different times. And I think if I was in college now, I could have easily transferred or changed my path. And I just feel on a personal level, I grew so much as a player by sticking it out and working through those tough times and grinding through some stuff. And I'm obviously everyone's path is different. I'm not trying to say it's bad to transfer, but I think also with NIL, it can create, I feel like, a different type of teammateship that maybe, it's evolving
For
what
sure.
college sports are going to look like in the future. And so, I'm glad I didn't have to deal with that. And hindsight is always 20/20, but I wouldn't change a thing. And I think it would be tough to be a coach and an athlete right now in the college climate.
What is a Barton family dinner like when you've got big brothers who are looking at little brother and like, dude, you're going to be in the NFL with us someday, but you're making money already. Do it this way. And you have navigated the elite athletics path as well, as have your parents. So, are these dinner table discussions, or do you guys just like, no, we don't talk about sports at all because we're talking horses instead?
It's a good mix. I think we do talk about sports, but more, I guess, just the mental aspect of it of, for example, my younger brother, he's, I feel like, so inactive with NIL or trying to get sponsorships. Like, it's just not what he cares about.
Yeah, I know. We tried to get him to do the weekly interview on my show this season. I was just like, Lander, you're the best defensive player on the team. We want to talk to you. Would you be interested in that? He's just like, yeah, I think so. And then he was like, nah, just kidding. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, if it's taken away from his Pilates or film study, he's like.
Wait, Pilates?
Yeah. Me and all my siblings, we go to Intermountain Pilates training studio for all of our rehab.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's like a big part of all of our schedule. It's
Okay.
so fun. We get to see each other there.
That's cool.
But
That's awesome.
like anything that takes away from that schedule of getting ready for football, he's not interested.
Wow.
But I feel like that's kind of a common theme within my family of like, let's keep the main thing the main thing.
Smart.
And if you work hard, work smart, good things will happen.
You can't really question the results, I guess. So,
Yeah.
All right. This is a question I have for every volleyball athlete I get to talk to. When you're coming up and there's coaches just like, you're tall, you're athletic, come play volleyball for us. How do you decide whether you're going to emphasize beach volleyball, court volleyball? Like, how do you pick?
I think there's a lot more opportunity to choose indoor volleyball in
Okay.
the state right now.
So the decision is made for you effectively?
Kind of. I think from my experience, there's a lot more clubs and things that you can play indoor volleyball in. You can play for your high school team. There's more scholarship opportunity as an indoor volleyball player.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like if you grow up in a community where beach volleyball is big, then maybe that's kind of what you lean more into. But for me, there were just way more opportunities indoor.
I asked that question because we know people who played the BYU volleyball who've gone on to a lot of success, even on the beach volleyball scene.
Yeah.
Casey Patterson's I grew up with his wife randomly, who was a BYU volleyball player as well. So yeah, I just, I know that you played both at the University of Utah, right? Which one's more fun?
Oh man, beach can be more fun if you're winning. Like you are.
Are you just competitive enough that like whatever you're better at is going to be where you have more fun with?
Sometimes.
Yeah, fair.
But no, I actually wanted to play beach in college, and my parents said absolutely not. They were very much adamant that they wanted me to play indoor. You know, they're two very different types of games. I think indoor is a little bit more power, size, you know, and then beach is not that power doesn't play into it, but it's like crafty ball control. And yeah, I really wanted to play beach only in college, and my parents made the choice for me. You're not doing that.
Wait, you didn't play beach and
I did both in college, but I wanted to do beach only originally.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I wanted to go to USC for beach because they have one of the best beach programs in the country.
Don't say that. We're the home of the Utes. Don't
no,
say
don't
you
worry.
Want
Then I changed my mind completely, and then Utah got a beach volleyball program.
Yeah.
Worked out perfectly. Go Utes forever.
Yeah. Yes. Obviously. We don't expect you to say that, Ronnie, as a how much trash talk is there between the two of you based on your alma maters?
Danny doesn't really trash talk.
Yeah.
So it's not fun. Like I'll throw.
It's just like one direction from you.
I'm just in my glitter bubble, you know. I'm like happy to be at practice.
So you're just talking trash for no response.
Yeah,
That's just bullying. All right. I'm the dad of 3 daughters. Okay, 2 of them are going to be very tall. Volleyball is going to be part of our life at some point. They're super young. Youngest one's a baby. Like she's 1. I got 5, 3, and 1. What is the best thing about being raised in volleyball, and what is the worst thing about being raised in volleyball?
I don't know that I was raised in volleyball, so I don't know if I have like a great answer for that. But I would just say it's one of the most team-dependent sports, and so like you have to learn how to work on a team if you're going to play volleyball. Is I would say one of the best things, but it also can feel like one of the worst things at times. So
fair.
I would say similar. I grew up playing all sports. Like whatever season it was, my parents signed us up for that team. And so I would say maybe something I'm seeing sooner with volleyball now is specializing from a really young age.
With every sport, parents are doing this.
Yeah, and I'd say
Crazy.
that's like, I would want to stay away with that when I have my own kids one day.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so beneficial to do different things, play different sports. And so I would say the best part about volleyball is your teammates. It's so fun. You can make like best friends. And then, I don't know, I just think it's sad to see from a young age kids are being forced into one sport so early. And yeah, I don't know.
It's so wild because we will hear, I mean, we get on this show, we talk to a lot of college coaches, right? And the college coaches will say, don't make your kid do one thing. We want multiple sports athletes. We want people learning all this stuff. And parents just ignore it. Yeah. They're just like, well, I want to get my kid to get a scholarship. And the people who will give them a scholarship are publicly saying, don't specialize your kids. If they're good, we will find them. Yeah. But, yeah, parents, we're all this way. You'll be this way when you have kids. You think you know best for your own kids. And you won't even listen to the people who are like, no, I literally can give your daughter a scholarship. I don't want her to only be a volleyball player for 15 years or whatever. Yep. It's a pet peeve of mine, and we talk about it on the show probably more than we should. Back to the Love Volleyball Salt Lake, all right? The regular season coming to a close here pretty soon. You guys got a couple games coming up out at Bruin Arena, Salt Lake Community College. Give me the pitch on why I should bring my family out to watch these final couple opportunities for regular season volleyball here.
Well, I think it being the last weekend, like everybody's going to bring their best. And I think last week we played, or 2 weeks ago, we played Madison at home, who was our first game this Friday. And it went 5 sets, and it was just a really intense, high-level, high-energy game. And so I think that we're chomping at the bit to get them back again and get another chance at them. So I think, and then we play Austin. So it's just going to be 2 really scrappy, intense games with a lot of great talent. And the Bruin Arena is the perfect size for it. So it's just high energy in that gym.
Do you know a lot of your competition because of the college circuit and the pro circuit that you guys were on? Like most of these girls, kind of like, is there rivalries, natural stuff that's developed? I mean, does it ever get heated?
I would say
you're
volleyball.
The wrong person to ask that thing.
Well, I would just say volleyball in general is like, I feel like there's some room to grow in that area of like trash talk isn't very common.
Okay.
And I feel like, I don't know, it adds to the intensity of not even trash talk, but you could like house someone on a block and stare them down. And I feel like it's not that common yet. But I feel like more and more players start to slide in more subtle things. And I feel like it just builds up that, you know, like that competitive drive. And I don't know. I think a lot of us do know each other because our paths have crossed in some way, whether we were teammates or we played against each other. But yeah, I think people are more comfortable with people they know to do that sort of thing. And so I think more of that is going to start happening, you know, getting a little bit more chippy.
You just brought up something. There are certain things in sports that are just like so dominant, right? Like if you're in a fight, you knock somebody out, you're the king of the world for however long, right? In football, the big hit, whatever. Basketball, if you dunk over somebody, you posterize someone. Volleyball, to me, never having played volleyball at any kind of real level, it seems like it would be the absolute most demeaning, demoralizing, horrible thing to go up thinking, I'm just going to hit this, I'm just going to kill this thing, and have it blocked right back in your face. And it, like, bounces off your chest. You make a funny face. Yeah. Like, volleyball, so many times you see these incredible athletes rising up, and you're like, oh, that's a kill. That's going to be – and then blocked right back in your face. Is it the worst thing ever to get blocked?
It's like a stab in the heart.
Oh,
like,
my
I'm
gosh.
Like, oh,
I would
hurts.
quit. I would quit the first time I tried to spike something down and somebody just put it right back in my face. I would get up and I would walk off the court and you would never see me again.
Yeah, the feeling to do that is definitely there. But then it's just like you got to reset and get ready to rip the next one, you know?
Yeah, it's wild. It's one of those things. It's like you watch sports, and even if you don't know a lot about volleyball, like I don't know a lot about volleyball, I see that, and I'm just like, no, that I could never my ego could never survive that happening.
But you almost have always have an opportunity to go get them back.
Yeah.
So it's like someone blocks you. Like if they take a swing, you're going to be back in their face.
I'm coming
Fair.
for you.
Yeah. Fair. All right. Before I let you go, Danny, I got to ask you. You got to put it on the record. The best athlete in the Barton family is who?
You know, I feel like there's been a lot of debate between me and Lander. I feel like those are two of the common answers. But I don't know. I would like to say it's me, but maybe because Lander's my younger brother and I just like have this motherly love for him. He is special, and I don't know. I think Lander is really quite a specimen, so maybe him.
That's the wrong answer.
Boring.
I wanted you to be like, I'm the best athlete. All my brothers are dorks. That would have been a better soundbite for us to have.
There's no trash talk here.
Yeah.
I told you.
We're learning that about Danny. Like, you just said that you think that's going to be part of volleyball. You need to, like,
I know.
add
I got
that
to step
your
up
game.
my trash talk game.
You need to bring that in.
You're right.
Are you competitive with your husband? Former Utah linebacker Christian Drews, for people who don't know.
Absolutely. We play pickleball actually a lot in the off season, and I cannot stand if I ever lose to him.
I imagine.
Tears to my eyes.
Now, that we might see some trash talk there. That might be the only place. Husband and wife trash talk. Good luck with the rest of the season, as short as that is. Thanks so much for coming in today. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love Volleyball Salt Lake, Bruin Arena. Go find tickets and catch the final few contests of the season. We'll wrap up the Sean O'Connell Show next on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Great interview.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Time for a little crosstalk here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Brought to you by Burt Brothers. Spring into savings. Get your car ready for the season. $69 tires, $50 off service tickets, $79 alignments with the purchase of 2 or more tires. Don't wait. Deals don't last forever. Burt Brothers. Stop by today. Burt Brothers does it better. Spence Checketts, who was down in Vegas with us yesterday and is here now in Salt Lake City. Spence, how are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Your microphone was already on.
All right. The headphone situation in the studio continues to be baffling. There's nothing.
Spence, don't be unrealistic with your expectations. We work for a radio company. Headphones should not be a thing.
Good point. I need to recalibrate my expectations for the
What,
entire.
You want a microphone that works too?
I know, man. I know. It's silly me.
Diva.
There's no. People have said that. There's nothing better than landing after taking off in like 60, 65 degree sunshine and coming home and scraping snow off your car in April. Like,
April Fools.
What are we doing here, man?
Mother Nature says April Fools.
I'm sorry to be that guy, but spring snowstorms hit differently. April snowstorms hit different. I was only in Vegas for 24 hours, but it was just nice to have some desert sun. You got back safely, so good for you after calling the game yesterday. But yeah, good little Vegas trip. I don't need very much time in Vegas, if I'm honest.
Yeah, me neither. It was great. Had a great meal down there on Sunday night. Got to call the game, which for me, I love being able to do play-by-play stuff, and I was very grateful for the opportunity. Again, thanks to everyone at Utah Sports Radio Network for letting me step in for Bill Riley. Thanks to Bill for taking the vacation he had already planned. It's just such a fun experience. I wish we could have seen that team, close out in more of a storybook fashion, but it was more appropriate, I suppose, that the year ended unceremoniously.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the show yesterday. The game, in a way, was a microcosm of the season. It was one 4.5-minute stretch. I mean, you were calling it. You saw it in the second half that cost him an 11-point lead and ultimately cost him the game. I mean, they had a chance at the end, but, you say goodbye to this group of players and a guy like Gabe Madsen, who could have transferred for maybe a little bit more money or a better team, decided to stay. I kind of view him like a Brandon Carlson, tip of the cap. But I also feel like there's a big portion of our community that's ready to move on to Alex and to what's next. So, you never begrudge players for showing up and playing hard, and Craig for, coaching the hell out of a team that was picked to finish last in the Big 12. But I think a lot of Ute fans are excited and curious about to see what's next.
I piggybacked off the discussion we had on your show yesterday about what the best way to start the reset is for the Alex Jensen era. Put that in a poll question. Clean slate, return nothing. Retain Eilert, maybe some players as well. Retain the key players or bring back everyone. 2% of people want to bring back everyone.
I want to know who those 2% of people are.
Retain key players is the leader here, 63%. And an even 17.5% split between the clean slate and keeping Eilert as well. So
yeah. Yeah, and, as we talked about, I talked to Sean Mooney about this, Smitty as well, the guest we had, Josh Furlong from KSL. No part of me has any inside information about Alex's plans. I just have to wonder whether or not his desire is to start this thing over and build it right from the ground up in his image, the way he wants to do it. But only time will tell. I'm surprised that, a couple weeks have passed without an announcement about another assistant coach.
Yeah, I've heard the rumor mill, the innuendos once again churning around Andre. Maybe that there's some momentum, positive momentum in that direction. But that was we did breaking optimism, not news.
Ooh, I like that.
Breaking optimism. What's coming up on the drive?
We've got a couple good NBA guests today. Tom Haberstroh, Tim McMahon. Pob's going to stop by. Pablo Mastroni. We'll do a little RSL. We'll talk about the ownership transition. Obviously, we have a Final Four in front of us. Ken Pomeroy's going to be by, so we'll do a little bit of everything. Some NFL draft stuff. We're like 3 weeks away from the NFL draft, so that's also right around the corner.
Well, thanks to everyone who listened to the show today. Thanks to everyone who joined me on the show today. Kyle Whittingham especially, the head coach of Utah football. Always great to hear from him. If you missed that live, you can find it on ESPN700sports.com on the on-demand section of the ESPN 700 app. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to everyone once again. Scott Mitchell is going to be filling in the rest of the week. I got PFL duties, so we'll talk to you very shortly, but not tomorrow. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network.